The activities went on, and each group tried so hard to emerge the winner for the day. Alyssa's group wasn't exempted, as both parents did everything in their power so Aiden could enjoy the event. As they went on to the next activity, Alyssa couldn't help but notice how Ezekiel patiently supported Aiden, gave him his attention, and correcting whatever mistakes he made without scolding him. He was so gentle and tender with Aiden that it made Alyssa start to challenge her negative perception of him. Maybe he truly means it. The thought flashed in her head, but for just a split moment before she shook it off. She had to remind herself that it was Ezekiel that was the subject. He switches moods anyhow, like a chameleon changes its color. She couldn't jump into conclusions just because he's acting sane for the moment. Who knows when he'll change back to the scumbag that he is? Forget about him, Alyssa, and just focus on the task at hand. She reprimanded herself as she joined back into the activity. The final activity began, and it was more challenging than the other ones they've been doing. This one was between the parents, and the children were to keep scores. It comprised of a silent communication where a word would be shown to one of the participants by the kindergarten teachers, and the parent shown the picture had to use hand gestures to describe it, and the other had to be able to tell what it was. Since Aiden was the child, he was made the scorekeeper. To avoid cheating, everyone participating were made to turn off their mind links so the answers wouldn't be passed. The games started, and all parents commenced with the competition. Alyssa was the first, so when her word was shown, Alyssa used hand gestures for Ezekiel, and he got the answer immediately. The onlookers watching them were so surprised by their teamwork. It felt like Ezekiel could tell what she wanted to show him even before she gestured to him. They both displayed remarkable synergy, flawlessly emerging with the highest scores amongst all of the contestants. At some point, the other parents and school staffs thought they were both cheating because they haven't gotten any wrong answer, but none of them had the guts to accuse them of it, as Ezekiel was their alpha. What they didn't know was that Alyssa was once a mute and Ezekiel had learned sign language to be able to communicate with her. So something like this was too easy for them to win. Only Emma knew what was going on. She was so mad that Alyssa's team were winning. She couldn't call them out for fear of what her brother might do to her, so she stormed off angrily. When the game ended, Ezekiel and Alyssa emerged as the winner of that activity. Cheers filled the air as everyone couldn't believe how good they were. Ezekiel smiled happily, and he unconsciously engulfed Alyssa in a tight hug. Alyssa was too happy to notice, so she hugged him back. When she realized what was going on, she pulled away from the hug and made sure there was a safe distance between the both of them. Ezekiel felt a pang of sadness in his heart when she pulled away from him, but he quickly covered his pain with a bright smile. He pulled Aiden instead into his arms and lifted him up. Aiden couldn't stop giggling as Ezekiel kept on throwing him in the air. As everyone kept on congratulating them, someone from the crowd screamed out to them, "Kiss your wife!" He yelled out to Ezekiel, and the rest of them followed suit. "Kiss! Kiss! Kiss!" The crowd chanted. The chants made Alyssa uncomfortable. She didn't want to engage in any skinship with Ezekiel, especially in public. She turned to Aiden only to see an expectant gaze in his eyes. She didn't want it, but she had to give in for Aiden. She reluctantly leaned closer to Ezekiel and placed a small peck on his lips before pulling away from him. "Boo! You call that a kiss? Do it better." The crowd booed in disappointment. They were expecting something better, so the chants began again. "Kiss him better! Kiss him better! Kiss him better!" Alyssa didn't care about the loud chants. She had given it her all and couldn't go more than that. "Why don't we give the people what they want?" Ezekiel whispered with a wide smile plastered on his face. "What?" Ezekiel ignored Alyssa's suspicious gaze and put Aiden down carefully. Alyssa's eyes widened when she realized what he was about to do, but before she could find time to move, he wrapped his hands around her waist and pulled her closer to his body. Her soft chest landed directly on his hard ones, sending sparks flying through both of their bodies. Ezekiel cupped her cheeks and pulled her into a deep kiss, a French kiss. The crowd yelled happily as they finally get to see what they wanted. Alyssa was furious, but she couldn't make a scene in front Aiden and the rest audience. She had no choice but to kiss him back. Aiden chuckled and playfully covered his eyes as his parents kept kissing like they were alone. They kissed for a few more seconds before pulling away. They locked eyes as they both tried to catch their breaths. Alyssa turned to Aiden and was satisfied to see the happy smile on his face. Though she didn't want the kiss, her son was happy, and that made the kiss worth it. When the event ended, Aiden couldn't stop beaming with smiles. They had emerged the winner of the competition, and best of all, both his parents helped him win. That was the happiest he had ever been in his life, and he knew who to be grateful to. "Thank you so much for making today the best day of my life," he said to both Alyssa and Ezekiel. Alyssa smiled back at him. She was moved by his happiness. She wished that happy smile on his face would last forever. All this wouldn't have happened if Ezekiel didn't help, though he had his shortcomings. Him being here for Aiden on such a special day meant a lot to her. "Thank you so much for your help," she said to Ezekiel. Despite her pride, she knew she had to acknowledge his efforts too. Ezekiel was surprised by her words, but he quickly seized the perfect moment. He leaned towards her and muttered in a low voice, "No need to apologize. This is what I should be doing, and I plan to keep on doing this every day for the rest of my life. I want to show you that I will never let you or Aiden down again. Not now, not ever." Alyssa stared at him quietly. Her initial resolve never to let him back into both of their lives was slowly wavering. She hoped he meant what he just said. "Let's go take a photo," Aiden yelled happily, pulling them out of their short moment. He pulled them over to where the photographer was. They followed his lead and stood in line. When it got to their turn, they took their spot. Aiden was in the middle, while Alyssa and Ezekiel stood by both his sides. Due to their position, Alyssa and Ezekiel had a bit of distance from each other. It was done on purpose, as Alyssa didn't want to be near him. Ezekiel understood Alyssa's intention, so he moved to Aiden's back without them noticing. Just as the shutter clicked, Ezekiel suddenly pulled Alyssa close to him, and the picture was taken that way, making them look much closer. "Why did you that?" Alyssa muttered in fury. "Don't worry. One day you will willingly stand by my side without resisting me," he whispered to her. His deep voice melted down every anger Alyssa felt within her and was replaced with shivers. She felt her flutter by being so close to him and being able to breathe in his scent. She had to admit that he smelt so good and manly. "What is wrong with me?" A few days later, just as Ezekiel had promised, he spent the rest days trying so hard to win back both Alyssa's and Aiden's heart. It was easier for him to get Aiden, as the boy was so much in need of his father's love, but Alyssa, on the other hand, she didn't make things easy for him. She knew Ezekiel best, and she had spent almost half her life vying for his heart. She had promised herself not to be that stupid anymore, but that didn't stop Ezekiel. He knew that as long as he doesn't give up, she would open her closed heart to him again. It isn't that easy to fall out of love with someone, especially after loving them for so long. He also took the time to get closer to his family. Though he had spent most of his childhood with Alyssa, he knew she wasn't the same girl she used to be. He only realized after he brought her back that she had changed in a lot of ways. He wanted to study her more so he would be able to easily win her heart, so he used his son as bait. He knew Alyssa doesn't want to have anything to do with him anymore, but with Aiden in the middle, she had no choice but to stay with him. Today, he planned to take them to eat out. They had only eaten together at Alyssa's house, and he wanted to try eating at a fancy restaurant with them. Honestly, he still couldn't get out the scene of them eating with Louis out of his mind. He was still jealous and wanted to know how it felt. Hopeful, him eating with them would help him forget about that day. When he told Alyssa about his plans, she didn't reject because of how ecstatic Aiden looked upon hearing they were going to eat out. Alyssa dressed Aiden up and also put on a new set of clothes. After they were done preparing, they went back to the living room where Ezekiel was waiting patiently for them. Ezekiel's eyes moved to Alyssa's figure, and as always, he couldn't get his eyes off of her. "You're drooling," Aiden teased with a small chuckle, bringing him out of his lustful thoughts. Ezekiel let out an awkward scoff and tried to put on a smile to cover up his embarrassment. His son had just caught him drooling over his mother. His eyes met with Alyssa's, and it made him more embarrassed. "Let's go," he muttered and scurried out of the house like his plants were on fire. He just couldn't bear the embarrassing atmosphere anymore. Alyssa watched his retreating figure with an amused expression on. "He's embarrassed because I caught him eyeing you," Aiden explained with a snicker. "You don't know that," Alyssa answered bashfully. "You should have seen him yourself, Mom. I don't blame him, though. Your beauty is like that of a goddess. You don't need much effort to look the way you do." Alyssa felt blush creep up her cheeks as her son complimented her. She can never get used to his endless compliments. "Thank you, baby," she said, and they walked out of the house together. They walked to the driveway where Ezekiel was waiting for them. He no longer had any embarrassed expression on his face. He had already calmed down before they came out to meet him. The glint in his eyes increased as he watched two of the most important people in his life smiling from ear to ear as they walked over to him. His eyes met with Alyssa's, and she looked away immediately. She helped place Aiden at the back seat with his seatbelt strapped over his waist before taking her spot at the passenger seat. Ezekiel sat at the driver's seat before starting the car and driving off. In the car, Aiden kept chattering off while Alyssa answered back. At intervals, if a question was directed to him, Ezekiel would answer. Ezekiel had never felt so fulfilled in his entire life. Sweet moments like this didn't come that easy for Ezekiel, so he always cherished them every chance he gets. After driving for half an hour, Ezekiel stopped the car at their destination. It was the pack's most renowned Friend restaurant. It was hard to get a reservation there, but because of Ezekiel's status, it was made easier. A waiter came and took them to the private room Ezekiel had reserved, and they were each given the menu. Aiden happily flipped through the booklet, only to realize he couldn't understand what was written there. Since it was a French restaurant, most of the words were written in French. He wanted to show off the knowledge he had learned at school to his parents, but was disheartened to know that he wasn't that good at French. He felt embarrassed as he placed the menu back on its spot. Sensing his disappointment, Alyssa tried to help. "Tell me where the problem is, and I'll try to translate," she said to him, even though she could barely understand French. She just wanted to make him happy. Ezekiel knew she didn't understand French that well after noticing the reluctance in her voice, so he quickly stepped in for her. He picked up the menu and patiently helped Aiden translated all of the French words to English. Intrigued by his knowledge, Aiden asked him for help in pronouncing some of the words. Ezekiel did, and Aiden couldn't help but be proud. He had no idea that his father was this knowledgeable. He hoped to learn from him someday. Ezekiel also took the time to help them order, and their meals were served immediately. Aiden didn't stop there. He kept asking more questions about the French language, and Ezekiel took his time to explain to the boys understand. Alyssa was filled with mixed emotions as she watched her son and his father bond so effortlessly, like they've known each other for a very long time. She knew how much Aiden wanted and craved for his father's love and attention. She also knows how disappointed he would be when Ezekiel returns back to his old ways. She didn't want him to pass through that, and at the same time, she didn't want to hinder him from getting the affection he deserves. Despite how bad Ezekiel had treated her, she didn't want her son to duffer because of it. She thought she could do it, but now she knows she doesn't want to be a selfish mother to Aiden. But what if this is only temporary? What if he changes back to how he used to be, or even becomes worse? Instead of you to think about what might happen, why don't you enjoy the present? The guy obviously regrets what he did to you, and he genuinely loves you, her wolf said to her. You've always supported him, even though he hurts us both, Alyssa answered. Because unlike you, I can tell he's genuine. He's only this way because that wench keep following him around like a leech. Her wolf answered, anger laced in her tone as she thought about Cindy. That's the point. He gave her the chance to. If he truly loves me, he won't be moving about with another lady. Isn't that what he's doing now? For the past few days he's been with us. He leaves for work and comes back straight to our home. Isn't that enough reason for you to finally stop doubting him?" Her wolf asked. Alyssa looked over at Ezekiel. His affection and happiness were so obvious as he helped Aiden with his cutlery. Has he finally decided to choose them over his family and his lover? Is he ready to protect them both from the people he had grown to love? Can he risk that? Ezekiel felt an intense gaze on him, so he raised his jeet up, only to see Alyssa staring deeply at him while lost in thought. He unconsciously smiled at her, and for the first time, she smiled back. Ezekiel's eyes widened when that happened. It was only a half smile that didn't reach her eyes, but it was enough to make Ezekiel elated. He was finally going somewhere. "So what do you plan to do if he chooses you and your son over them?" Alyssa's wolf asked her. "If he ever chooses us over them, most especially Cindy, even just once, I'll take him back for Aiden," Alyssa answered. For the first time in a while, Alyssa felt her wolf's contentment over her answer. She resumed her meal while she joked and laughed with Aiden and Ezekiel. It lasted for a while before she felt her phone vibrate on the table, indicating she had received a message. She picked up her phone, and a deep frown replaced the wide smile on her face when she saw who the message was from. "Enjoy your time with my man for now, because it definitely won't last long." She could feel the malice in the words as she read them. Cindy. A few days had passed since Cindy faked being sick to Ezekiel, and he never bothered to find out how she was doing. Cindy had been trying to contact him, or even find out where he is, but to no avail. After reopening her bank accounts for her, he had been purposely ignoring her. No matter how much she called him, he never picks up the phone, and he gave stern warning to his workers at the company to never let her in no matter the circumstances. That was how much he wanted to make amends to Alyssa. Cindy, on the other hand, was furious with the way he was treating her, and at the same time, she was scared that he was actually going to send her away after the birth of her child. Did he really want to get rid of her that bad? After all the promises they made to each other? They were meant to be mates instead. Everyone supported their union. His mom and his sister knew she was the right one for him. Everyone gave their supports except for his father. He was the only one that didn't like her, despite the fact that she was his beta's daughter and the most suitable choice for the Luna position. He chose a mute instead, a weak Omega. Even now that the old man is dead, he still managed to put a distance between her and his son because of what he made Ezekiel promise him on his deathbed. Cindy got more anxious as she called Ezekiel for the umpteenth time. He was still not picking. She had just gone to his company again, and they still chased her out, even before she could barge into his office. She had never been treated like that before. Everyone at the company respected her so much because she was their alpha's lover. Now, she is nothing but his baby mama. She felt so embarrassed as the guards dragged her out after she had boasted about being Ezekiel's Luna and how she would make Ezekiel punish them dearly for not letting her in. Passers-by couldn't hold back their laughter as she kept screaming like a mad woman and trying to force her way back in. She had never felt so humiliated in her entire life. How could Ezekiel treat her this way when she was carrying his true-born heir? Was it because of Alyssa and her weak son? When the call went to voicemail again, she couldn't hold back her anger anymore. She picked up the glass table close to her and threw it against the wall with all her might, shattering it to pieces. Tiny bits of the broken glass pierced her skin, but she felt numb to the pain. All she felt at that moment was unbearable anger and anxiety. No, Ezekiel can't treat me this way. He loves me. I'm his true Luna, not her. She muttered to herself as she bit her finger. She kept mumbling and biting her finger till she cut her skin. Blood was spilling, but her mind wasn't there. Images of Ezekiel smiling widely with Alyssa and her son during the parent-child event filled her mind. She pulled her hair with her fingers, hoping it would help make the memories disappear from her head, but it only got worse. Her face was red with pain, but she didn't stop. Suddenly her phone beeped, indicating she had received a message. Thinking it was Ezekiel, she rushed towards it with a wide smile only to see that it was just Emma. Her smile died down immediately, as disappointment surged through her. She mindlessly clicked on the message Emma had sent. Her heartbeat increased as she message piqued her interest. Emma had sent her a location, saying Ezekiel was there. Happy that she would finally be able to meet with Ezekiel, she rushed out of her house immediately. She took a taxi, and within a few minutes, they arrived at the location. She got down and rushed towards the restaurant after paying the driver. She was about to enter the building when someone caught her gaze through the restaurant's transparent wall. She paused on her spot and looked again, hoping it was all a dream. There he was, grinning happily with that bitch and her bastard son while she was going crazy trying to just meet with him. Ezekiel, who was supposed to be tending to her and their child, had completely abandoned her for these people. Watching them smile radiantly, acting like they were the perfect family, filled the rage in her heart. She balled her fists tightly, her nails digging into her palms as she watched Alyssa successfully steal her rightful position. She felt pure anger and jealousy within her that she wanted to storm in and destroy their perfect and happy moment when her wolf stopped her. "You barging in now will only make Ezekiel more distant from you," her wolf said, trying to reason with her. Cindy thought about what her wolf had said and realized that she was right, but she still didn't feel okay with leaving them that way. She wanted Alyssa to feel the pain she was feeling. She wanted to destroy their happy family so bad. Why don't you attack at a better timing? When Alyssa thinks she finally has it all, you'll make her realize that you are still and forever will be the only one in Ezekiel's heart. "And how am I supposed to do that?" Cindy asked. "You are the expert. You'll surely find a way," her wolf said before severing their link. Cindy thought hard about what her wolf just told her. How will I go about that? She asked herself as she tried to formulate the perfect plan. Within a few minutes, she had already gotten an idea. A sinister smile appeared on her face as her eyes were fixated on Aiden. Since he doesn't want to die yet, she has other use for him then. He was the apple of Alyssa's eye, and also the person that would help her get Ezekiel back. Cindy picked up her phone and sent Alyssa a text. She felt satisfied when she saw the instant change in Alyssa's mood. This is just the beginning of their end. The next day, Alyssa's sleep was disrupted by the sound of a car's engine revving. She yawned tiredly as she attempted to stand up from the bed, but collapsed back the moment she felt acres all over her body. Her mind immediately swept to last night, and her face turned crimson when she recalled her passionate time with Ezekiel. It lasted for so long as they couldn't get enough of each other. Now, she was the one feeling the pain. She turned to the other side of the bed, but couldn't find Ezekiel. She felt his side of the bed, and it was cold, which meant that he had left since. Where did he go to? She wondered as she managed to sit up. She was about to pick her phone from the bedstand when she noticed a cup of water, some pain-killing medicine, and a note resting there. She picked up the note and read its content. She recognized the handwriting as Ezekiel's immediately. The contents of the note warmed her heart. "I'm so sorry for leaving early. I had something to take care of at the office. I took Aiden to school on the way because I know you would be too tired to do it. Also, take the medicine on the table. I know you'll need it." As Alyssa read the last part of the note, she could imagine Ezekiel winking at her, and that made her blush harder. He loves teasing her. She was glad that he had helped take Aiden to school because it would have been really stressful for her too. His gesture was so thoughtful. She reached for the medicine and swallowed it before proceeding to drink the whole cup of water. The medicine made her feel a little bit stronger than when she woke up, so she was able to stand up from the bed. Since Ezekiel had taken Aiden to school and she had workers at her bakery, she had more time to herself that day. She entered her bathroom and stared at her naked body through the large mirror. Her eyes were hoodie, but they still had a glint in them. Her hair was very messy, and she had love bites all over her body. Ezekiel made sure to leave those marks on her while she was deeply asleep so she would wake up to them. He wanted her to know that no matter what, she was his and his alone. For the first time in a long while, she's seeing those hickeys on her body. She bit her lips when she recalled how he stared at her last night. He didn't want to stop, neither did she. Last night he made her feel things she had never felt when she used to have sex with him. She wasn't drunk, and neither was she fighting their mate bond. She gave herself willing to him, losing all sense of restraint, and he made sure she didn't regret it. Despite being sore all over, she had a wide smile on her face. She washed up and then returned back into her room. She sat in front of her dressing mirror and dried her wet hair with her hairdryer. Then, she delicately massaged her skin with her lotion. She walked into her closet and put on a fresh set of clothes before taking her seat back at her dressing table. Despite the fact that she loved the hickeys Ezekiel left on her body, she didn't want everyone to see it. Things like that were meant for her eyes alone, so she used concealer to hide the ones that were on her neck and face, since the rest were hidden underneath her clothes. She combed her long hair down her back and then tied it up into a messy bun. Satisfied with how she looked, she picked up her purse and phone and left her room and was about to head out when she saw a plate of food neatly arranged on the dinning. There was another note next to it, and she picked it up. Made with love, just for you. Love. Ezekiel. Alyssa chuckled softly after she read the note. How did he know she would be hungry the next day? She never thought she would ever see this side of Ezekiel in her lifetime. She had never known him to be thoughtful or sweet. First, he left medicine on her bedside and took Aiden to school. Now, he prepared a meal for her. She had to admit she loved this side of him. She sat down and opened the plate. Her smile increased when she saw freshly made pancakes staring back at her. The sweet smell of the pancakes hit her nose, making her starve the more. Her stomach growled, warning her that she needed to eat something, so she took a bite of the pancake. A small sigh escaped her mouth as she shut her eyes in ecstasy. She never knew Ezekiel could cook so well. His pancakes were way sweeter than the ones she used to make, but she was definitely not going to let him find out. She took another bite and sighed again. He was just too good. Within a few minutes, she had already finished the pancakes. She opened the bottle of milk next to the empty plates and poured some milk for herself into the cup. She burped a little after drinking the entire contents in the cup. She smiled as she patted her filled stomach. If only this can continue for a long time. She took the used plates and cup to the kitchen and washed them before thoroughly leaving the house right after locking it behind her. She boarded a taxi, and it took her straight to the bakery. After paying the driver, she entered the bakery. Walking past the long line of customers waiting to buy some of her pastries, a fulfilled smile appeared on her face as she watched the customers in the bakery eat to their satisfaction. She had managed to rise from all of her setbacks. Now, her bakery was bigger and more popular than it was before. It's all thanks to Ezekiel for his help, also Cindy and Emma for trying to ruin her. Now, there's nothing they can do to her bakery anymore. She entered the kitchen and saw Lily. She was mixing something in a bowl, but she looked distracted. Her eyes were not on what she was doing. "Good morning, Lily." Alyssa greeted, but Lily didn't respond. Alyssa was about to greet again when she noticed that what Lily was mixing was about to spill over. "Lily!" She yelled out as she rushed to Lily and grabbed the bowl before it could spill over. Her loud voice was enough to bring Lily out of her dreamland. "Alyssa?" She muttered in surprise, not expecting to see her there. "What's wrong with you? You've been out of it for a while now," Alyssa asked in concern. Before Lily could reply, a staff member walked in. "There's a new customer that needs to be attended to, but everyone's busy," the staff member announced as she dropped the plates she had came in with into the sink. "I'll go attend to her," Alyssa said to the staff member. The lady nodded her before turning to wash the plates. "I'll be back," Alyssa said to Lily as she gave her one last concerned stare before she left the kitchen to attend to the said customer. The middle-aged woman stared at the large signboard in front of her. "Welcome to Moonstone Keeper's Pack," she muttered, her eyes not leaving the signboard. She had a look of exhaustion on her face. She had been traveling non-stop for years, hoping to find the one she had lost years ago. She had traveled through many packs in the north, and all of her journeys were futile. She had been disappointed countless times, but still didn't lose hope in finding her. Now she was going to the next pack with hopes of finding her or any clues that would lead her to her lost one. She stared at the picture of a young Alyssa in her hands. "I'll never stop searching, baby. Hopefully, I'll see you again, and when I do, I'll never let you go. Mommy miss you," she muttered as she placed the picture on her chest, a wave of hope and longing washing through her. After attending to the customer, Alyssa was about to go back into the kitchen to resume her talk with Cindy when she heard the bell to the bakery's door jingle again. She had already forgotten that there was a long line of customers waiting outside. She looked around in search of an idle staff member, but they were all busy tending to the other customers. "I need to hire more workers," she thought to herself as she gently massaged her thighs. Her encounter with Ezekiel last night had left her famished. Though she took the drugs he left for her this morning, she still felt weak all over, most especially in her leg area. She had thought that she wasn't going to stand for too long at the bakery. "Good morning," she heard a soft female voice. "Good more." She looked up to see a sophisticated middle-aged woman staring at her. She was dressed in a long green gown that stopped at the end of her knee with a pair of luxurious heels to match. She also put on fancy-looking jewelries which highlighted her facial figures and an expensive purse. She wasn't putting on any makeup, but she looked really gorgeous. The most gorgeous middle-aged woman Alyssa had ever met. The way she walked, talked, and her gestures made her look effortlessly elegant. Alyssa was so lost in staring at the woman that she forgot to attend to her. "Hello." The woman's voice brought Alyssa out of her thoughts. Alyssa coughed and smiled in embarrassment when she realized that the woman had caught her intense gaze. "I'm so sorry. It's just that you're so beautiful." Alyssa complimented sincerely. "Really?" The woman's brows perked up in surprise. "Yes, if you look this good at your age, I wonder how you looked when you were younger," Alyssa added, making the woman laugh out. "Even though I'm as gorgeous as you claim, I know I can't compete with you," she claimed. "Seriously? You can't say that. I'm like every other average lady you'll meet out there," Alyssa said in a dismissive tone. "You're not. You're gorgeous, very gorgeous and well-mannered too," the woman complimented. "You can't jump into conclusions yet. We are just meeting for the first time. I can be quite opposite of what you think I am." Alyssa teased. "I can be wrong about other things, but never the impressions I get from people. You might try to deny it, but I know what I'm talking about." The woman answered as she took another glance at Alyssa. "Well, if that's your conclusion, I won't argue with you," Alyssa muttered with a small smile. "So what can I get you?" "Oh, a chocolate cheesecake with double raspberries. Wrap it up for me. I'm not eating here," the woman answered while Alyssa took notes. After Alyssa was done writing down the woman's order, she looked up to stare at her in surprise. "You enjoy this too?" she asked. "Yeah, it is my favorite dessert," the woman answered. "Me too," Alyssa exclaimed excitedly. Since she had been running her bakery and Lily's former coffee shop, she had never met someone with the same taste as hers. This was the first time, and the most surprising part was that the woman shared exactly the same preference as her. "Really, I never knew I would find someone that has the same taste as I do." "Me neither," Alyssa muttered in excitement. Alyssa found the woman so intriguing that she couldn't help but strike another conversation with her. Mrs. Alyssa asked as she prepared the woman's order. "Melissa. My name is Melissa. Just Melissa," the woman answered with a small smile. "Okay, Melissa." Alyssa loved the way the woman's name rolled out perfectly from her mouth. She had a really nice name. "I haven't seen you around here before." "Are you new in the pack?" Alyssa asked. "Yes, I came from the Northern Wolf Pack," the woman answered. "What made you travel such a long distance?" Alyssa asked again. "For the pack's upcoming celebration and also personal matters," Melissa answered as she stared at nothing in particular with a sad look on her face. Realizing she had pried too much, Alyssa felt guilty. She should have respected the woman's privacy instead of asking useless questions. "I'm so sorry for being too inquisitive," she apologized sincerely. "It's fine. You don't have to apologize." "Still, I'm sorry, and here's your order." Alyssa handed over her wrapped order to her. The woman received it and paid with her card. "Thank you for patronizing us. I hope you enjoy your dessert," Alyssa muttered as she waved at Melissa. Melissa waved back at her with a small smile before leaving the bakery. After that day, Melissa became a regular customer at Alyssa's bakery, and she was always ordering the same dessert. Alyssa loved being the one to attend to her as she enjoyed her company. She never really had an older woman in her life to talk to, except Lily, who she took as an elder sister. Talking to Melissa was like taking in a breath of fresh air. It was very comforting. Later that day, the once full bakery became almost empty. Alyssa sighed tiredly. She had tended to every customer that came in without taking a breathing moment, and now she was famished. She decided to close up, but first she had to continue with her conversation with Lily. She walked back into the kitchen only to see Lily was still in the same state she had left her in. "Lily," Alyssa called out in worry, but Lily jumped in surprise. She was so deep in her thoughts that she didn't realize that Alyssa was with her. "What's wrong with you today? Why are you so lost in thought?" Alyssa asked as she walked closer to her. Lily opened her mouth, then closed it back. It seemed she was contemplating whether to talk to Alyssa or just let it be. After much consideration, "It's nothing. I'm fine," Lily answered. Alyssa stared at her suspiciously, not believing her answer. "You know you can talk to me. I'm your friend, remember?" Alyssa reminded. "I know, and I'm telling you that there's nothing wrong with me." Lily lied again. "Why don't you want to talk to me?" "Wait, is it about a romantic relationship? Is a girl making you act this way?" Alyssa asked again in a teasing tone. Before Lily could reply, they heard the bells at the entrance door jingle, indicating they had a new customer. "I'll go attend to the customer," Lily muttered as she dashed out of the kitchen in a hurry to avoid Alyssa's question, but Alyssa didn't stop. She even followed her to the bakery's hall. "You're trying to avoid my question, right? We are not done with this conversation. You need to tell me." Alyssa's question died down when she noticed the dark look on Lily's face. She traced Lily's gaze to see who had made her mood change all of a sudden, and her eyes landed on a cheerful-looking man staring back at Lily. "You haven't been picking my calls. How have you been?" the man asked as he tried to approach her, but she moved away. His eyes darkened by what she did. Before he could attack her with words, Alyssa stepped into the awkward situation. "Who are you?" she asked as she walked closer to them. The man's eyes darted toward Alyssa and his foul expression became worse. "Is she your new fling?" he asked angrily as he pointed at Alyssa. Alyssa was visibly shocked at his sudden confrontation. She was about to clear the misunderstanding when Lily held her back with a pleading look in her eyes. Alyssa decided not to say anything, but she couldn't let the man stay as his presence obviously bothered Lily. "You need to leave," she said to the man as she walked over to him. "Who are you to tell me what to do? I'm not leaving here without an explanation. Lily, who's this bitch?" He yelled out as he tried to approach Lily again, but Alyssa stood in front of him, blocking his way. "This bitch is the one who isn't afraid to use force on you if you don't leave now," Alyssa said in a threatening tone as she gave him a cold stare, which sent shivers through his body. He was immediately intimidated by her words and gaze. He swallowed hard and then looked at Lily. "Don't think this is the end. I'll be back," he said as he turned to leave. "No, you won't. Now leave and don't ever show your face in front of her again," Alyssa yelled as she escorted him out of the bakery. After she made sure that he had left, she was about to head back into the bakery when she got a call from Louis. "Hello," she called out as she placed the phone on her ear. "Alyssa, you need to come down to the PAX hospital." The urgency in his tone made Alyssa worry. She was about to ask what was wrong when she heard Aiden crying in the background. His cries made her heart leap. Without wasting any more time, she rushed over to the PAX hospital. Cindy stood impatiently as she watched the students come out through the school's large gates. She had been monitoring Ezekiel for a few days, and she knew his routine like it was the back of her palm. Today, she came to see Aiden instead, knowing fully well that Ezekiel will soon arrive to pick him up. The loud screams of the children as they ran happily into the arms of their parents irritated her. She had never been a fan of children, so she never bothered to have one for Ezekiel. She had always been on drugs since she didn't want to go through the trouble of having to find out who her child's father was when she eventually gets pregnant. She had a lot of boyfriends that warmed her bed whenever she had issues with Ezekiel. One of them was the doctor that helped fake her pregnancy and lied that she had almost lost her baby. If she had known she would have to fight for Ezekiel's attention this way, she wouldn't have gone through those procedures that made her not able to put to bed. Well, it doesn't really matter now. What she had planned to do today is enough to sever the ties between Ezekiel and his dearest mate. And she, being the perfect choice for Luna, would step up to comfort him. Everything would be as it should be after they leave. Cindy smirked when she noticed the crowd at the school gate becoming larger. She had purposely chosen the after-school rush hour so there would be enough crowd to watch the unfolding drama. The chaos it would bring would provide enough cover for her plan. Her smirk increased when she saw Ezekiel sitting and waiting patiently in his car. She stood at a place where he could hardly see her, but she could see him clearly. She stared at the pills. Remembering how her doctor lover had told her to take the drugs, her plan must never fail. A few minutes later, the person she had been waiting for emerged through the gates. She quickly pulled out the pills from her bag and swallowed them. Then she walked over to him. "Finally, the wench's bastard has decided to show face," she said with a malicious grin as she blocked his way. With one stare, Aiden recognized her as the lady that had caused the fight between his mother and father at the hospital that day. He knew immediately that she was trouble, so he decided to ignore her. Nothing good would ever come out of answering her, so he walked away. Cindy's expression turned grim when he turned away from her. She hated when she was ignored. "Don't you have any ounce of respect? An elder is talking to you," she yelled out as she pulled him back using his school bag. Her sudden pull made him lose his balance, but he quickly regained his composure. "What do you want?" he asked angrily as he pulled his school bag from her hold. He hated her because she was the reason his mom and dad's relationship are a mess. "Wow, so the little demon can talk," Cindy muttered with a wide grin. "What do you want, old lady?" Aiden asked her. "Me? An old lady?" Cindy asked as she placed her hand on her chest. She was obviously taken aback by the tone and the words he used to describe her. "I don't see any other old lady here." Aiden answered her, increasing her fury. She wanted to pounce on him, to teach him a lesson, but she held her emotions in check. She couldn't risk it because Ezekiel was close by and she might never get the chance again. "I don't blame you. It's the way you were raised by your mother. She didn't teach you any manners." She spat, hoping to spite the little boy, but he didn't react the way she expected. "I see. Now if you would excuse me, I have better things to do with my precious time," he said as he walked out on her again. Cindy balled her fists angrily. He's just too stubborn, like his bitch mother. Her breath hitched when she noticed Ezekiel getting out of his car. She can't let him find her here like this. She let out a small groan when she felt pain in her lower abdomen. The drug was already taking its effect, so she had to be quick. She had to do whatever it took to make her plan work, so she ignored the intense pain and ran towards Aiden before Ezekiel could see him and blocked his way again. "You need to apologize for what you called me," she said to him. "Why should I? I didn't tell a lie," Aiden answered in annoyance. She was disturbing him yet again. "You this brat! You and your mother think you're above everyone. Is it because she's whoring around with my man?" She spat in disdain. A deep frown appeared on Aiden's face when he heard what she said. Cindy smirked evilly when she noticed she was finally getting to him. Insulting Alyssa was all it took, so she continued. "Your bitch mother thinks she can go scot-free after seducing and stealing someone else's man. She's nothing but a home wrecker." "Stop slandering my mother." "You are the home wrecker," Aiden yelled out angrily. "Really? Is that the lie she told you?" Cindy asked with a taunting smile. "No one told me. I know that," Aiden answered. "But isn't that how she got you? You're nothing but the product of a home-wrecking whore. A bitchy prostitute is what your mother is?" Cindy said to him. Cindy's smirk grew wider. As Aiden's face turned bright red, he clutched his fists in fury. He couldn't control the anger within him as Cindy kept insulting Alyssa in front of him. Just like she had planned, Aiden charged towards her, but before he could do anything, she fell down on the ground and held her tummy in pain. "No! No! No! My baby!" She yelled out in horror as she stared at the thick layers of blood trickling down her legs from her womanhood almost instantly. She was indeed in great pain, but not because of Aiden. The drug their lover had given her was strong enough to fool everyone around that saw what had happened. Within a few seconds, a large crowd had formed a circle around them. They all stared at Aiden with accusing gazes. Everyone blamed him for what was happening to Cindy. Aiden, on the other hand, was shocked. He hadn't even done anything to her, and she was already bleeding. "What's going on here?" A loud voice echoed, and everyone moved away immediately with their heads bowed when they noticed the domineering presence of their alpha. Aiden's shocked face held relief when he saw his father. He was about to rush to him and explain what had happened when Ezekiel's harsh glare befell him. "What have you done?" Ezekiel asked in fury. Aiden's words were stuck in his throat as he stared back at his father. He couldn't believe Ezekiel would take the woman's side without listening to his own side of the story. When Ezekiel initially came down from his car, he saw Cindy with Aiden. A deep frown appeared on his face as he had warned her severally never to show face in front of Alyssa or Aiden. He was about to go and reprimand her when he saw Aiden charge at her furiously. He rushed to them immediately when he saw her fall on the floor. His eyes held horror when he saw the blood trailing down her legs. He turned to Aiden in anger. The boy had put his baby in danger. Suddenly, someone covered Aiden from his piercing gaze. His anger increased when he saw Lewis protectively carry the sad-looking Aiden in his arms. Cindy, who had been reeling in the satisfaction of her plan coming to reality, felt her heart leap to her throat when she saw Louis. What is he doing here? Did he see everything? She thought to herself anxiously as she didn't expect him there. She turned to face Ezekiel only to see his anger had increased. With the looks of it, Louis' presence might not be a bad thing. All that matters is that she had finally succeeded in fooling Ezekiel, and it won't be long before he sends Alyssa and her bastard son packing. The Pax hospital. Ezekiel palmed his face, his legs shaking with anxiety as he sat at the waiting room close to the emergency ward. He had quickly rushed Cindy to the hospital when she kept screaming about being in pain. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead as he thought about the worst scenarios. He couldn't lose another baby again. Though the first one was his fault, he was willing to make things right by accepting Cindy's baby. He wasn't even in Aiden's life when he was initially born. It can't be the same with this baby. That child had to live. Why did Cindy have to show up in front of Aiden? He had warned her severally not to take any drastic action that could endanger the life of his pup, but she wouldn't listen. See what has happened now. Now that the worst has happened, what will he do? How was he going to cope with losing another pup? The mere thought of Cindy's actions filled him with rage. Aiden, who had followed Louis to the hospital, sat close to Ezekiel, but his father felt distant from him. How was he going to explain himself when he doesn't want to hear any word from him? The little boy was sad that his father would rather believe someone else than listen to a word that left his mouth, so the only things he could do was cry in Louis' arms. I didn't do anything to her. She just fell when I didn't even touch her. He croaked out amidst his tears. Hush, I know you didn't do it. Stop crying. Louis consoled him as he gently patted his back in a comforting manner. Their small conversation only infuriated Ezekiel the more. He knew what he saw. Aiden attacked Cindy, but here he was lying that he didn't, and Louis of all people was supporting him. Did he want Alyssa's attention that bad? To the extent of believing a child when he was obviously lying? The child isn't lying. You're the one that don't know what you saw. Ezekiel's wolf said to him, Wow, so I'm the liar now. Aiden is clearly the cause of what happened. How can a little boy of his age attack her to the extent of her losing her child? His wolf asked back. Then what made her fall? Nothing. Cindy's lying, his wolf argued. Enough of all these. You say she's lying, but I saw blood with my own 2 eyes. I was the one that rushed her to the hospital, not you. Ezekiel was angry that everyone, even his wolf, kept making him look like a fool. He saw what happened clearly, and nothing could change that image in his head. I hope you realize that I was with you all through, and unlike you, I can see beyond things that you can't. You think you're wise, but Cindy's just fooling you again. I hope it won't be too late, Buff. Ezekiel cut off the link between he and his wolf before he could complete his sentence. There was nothing his wolf would tell him that he would believe, because his rationality had been drowned out by the panic of losing his unborn pup. Aiden's continuous tears and denial infuriated him, so he rushed towards the boy and grabbed him harshly away from Louis' arm. Ezekiel's sudden pull made the boy stumble forward, but Ezekiel quickly steadied him and made him face him. "What is wrong with you? Why do you keep lying? I saw you. You caused this, but you're still denying it. When did you turn into such a bratty liar?" Ezekiel screamed at him. Aiden was startled by Ezekiel's sudden outburst. The fierce look in Ezekiel's eyes sent him shivering. This was the first time Ezekiel was acting this way towards him. "What is wrong with you? You are scaring the little boy," Louis yelled as he pulled Aiden away from Ezekiel. "He's my son, and I have the right to scold him whenever he does something bad," Ezekiel argued as he tried to go closer to Aiden, but Louis stepped in between them. "Something bad? He didn't even touch her." Ezekiel scoffed and angrily punched the wall beside him. It made his knuckles bleed, but pain was the least emotion he felt at that moment. "Why does everyone keep denying the fact that he attacked her?" he muttered to himself angrily. He turned back to face Louis, his eyes red with fury. What were you even doing there? Did you plan with Cindy to show up at the kindergarten?" he asked as he pointed his index finger at him. "And why will I do that?" Louis asked in confusion. Why would Ezekiel think he has something to do with Cindy of all people? "Obviously to get Alyssa's favor. Isn't that the reason you're supporting Aiden? I've always known you had eyes on my mate. I just never knew you would stoop so low," Ezekiel said as he eyed him in disgust. Louis couldn't believe what he had just heard from Ezekiel. He had always known Ezekiel to be irrational. He just never expected him to be this stupid too. He stared at Ezekiel silently with a disappointed look on his face. "I came here to take Aiden and Alyssa out for dinner. What I never expect was to see the person you are defending deliberately approach Aiden and acted like Aiden attacked her, knowing that you will believe it," Louis explained. "So you're saying that she faked everything?" Ezekiel asked with a small scoff. "Yes," Louis answered. "Wow," Ezekiel chuckled softly. "Then the blood. How would you explain the blood oozing from her?" Ezekiel asked again. Ezekiel's question made Louis question Cindy's motive. If Cindy was really pregnant for Ezekiel, why would she go through such lengths to get rid of it? Unless she was never pregnant in the first place. But what about the blood? Then he remembered her taking a pill before she approached Aiden. He didn't fail to notice her discomfort look after she had taken the pill. It must have been the pill. She didn't need Aiden to touch her. She only wanted the perfect angle to fool Ezekiel. "I saw her taking a pill. I'm sure the pill made her." "Shut up!" Ezekiel screamed in anger, cutting Louis off while Aiden shivered his fear. That was the height of it for Ezekiel. He had been listening to their nonsense for a long while now, and Louis had the guts to slander Cindy when she was in the ward, fighting for her life and that of their baby. How low could he go? "You better hope nothing happens to the baby. If not, you both will face the consequences," he threatened, his harsh glare mostly directed at Aiden, who hid in fear behind Louis' back. Just then, Alyssa rushed in and quickly carried Aiden into her arms. She had walked into Ezekiel raining threats on her son, his tone dripping with venom. As she held Aiden in her arms, he busted into tears again. Ezekiel's action towards him frightened him to the core. Alyssa muttered gentle and consoling words to calm him down. Then, she turned to face Ezekiel. She wasn't sure about what made Ezekiel yell at Aiden, but whatever the boy did to him didn't warrant such outburst from him. The look in Alyssa's eyes as she stared at Ezekiel was one he didn't recognize. It made him feel guilty for what he said to Aiden, but for just a short while when he recalled the reason he did it. Aiden needed to admit he was at fault instead of denying it. The air in the room became chilly as Alyssa and Ezekiel engaged in a face-off. Both were not willing to admit they were wrong. No words were said, but a lot of emotions were conveyed. Ezekiel couldn't stand the look in Alyssa's eyes anymore, so he turned away. He feared that the more he stared at her, the more guilty he would feel. Alyssa turned to face Aiden and searched all over his body anxiously. She wasn't aware of what had happened, but since Louis informed her that they were at the hospital, she feared for her son's well-being. A deep sigh of relief left her mouth when she noticed that there wasn't a single scratch on his body. But if there was nothing wrong with Aiden, why were they at the hospital? Why was Ezekiel mad at Aiden, and why is there blood on Ezekiel's clothes? "What's going on?" she asked when she couldn't think of a reason to explain what was happening. "You don't even know what your son did, and you're coddling him like he's innocent. I see why he's like this." Ezekiel sneered at her. Alyssa stared at him for a split moment before turning to face Louis. He was obviously not in the state to explain things to her, because for some reason, he's blamed Aiden for whatever had happened. Louis explained everything he had seen happen without leaving a single detail. After hearing Louis's explanation, Alyssa was sure that Aiden was innocent. There was no way a child his age could do what Ezekiel claimed he did, but Ezekiel was still hell-bent on making him the culprit. "I didn't do it, Mommy. I swear. I was only angry, but I never touched her." Auden explained, his eyes red like he was about to cry again. "I know you can't do something like that. I believe you," she assured as she tightened their hug. "But he doesn't believe me," Aiden muttered as a lone tear slid down his eyes. "Huh. I tried to explain everything that happened to him, but he wouldn't listen. He thinks I hurt her, and worse, he said a lot of things that broke my heart." Aiden explained as soft sobs left his mouth. Ezekiel's behavior towards him had both startled and hurt him beyond words. He couldn't believe that his father, who had dotted on him for days now, would suddenly change towards him. Alyssa turned to stare at Ezekiel again, disappointment in her eyes. He could treat her the way he liked, but not her son. This was what Shess as avoiding. She didn't want Aiden to suffer the same pain she did. The look in Alyssa's eyes made Ezekiel's heart drop. He couldn't bear the way she looked at him. Even though he was at fault, he couldn't admit it. He was hell-bent on making Aiden realize his mistake, but at that point, the only thing he could do was walk away from them. Alyssa watched in anger as Ezekiel walked away. As always, he would never admit that he was wrong. Her thoughts wandered off to Cindy and the message she sent her that day. She had warned her, but she chose to overlook it. She thought Cindy was bluffing as always. This was her plot. She never thought she would go as far as putting her life and that of her child in danger just so Ezekiel could hate his own son. Well, she won. Her plan came to reality. Like an idiot, Ezekiel believed her lie, and now he's hating on his son all because of a lie. He had chosen to believe Cindy once again like a fool. Realizing everything that had happened today was Cindy's plan made Alyssa angry. Not at Cindy, but Ezekiel. She had never seen someone as stupid as he was. Even Louis could see through Cindy's lies, but not him. He only believes what he wants to, and his words are always right to him. He never listens nor tries to see things from a different angle. Now her son was the one suffering for it. Furious, she decided to confront him. She made Aiden sit next to Louis. "Please watch over him. I'll be right back," she said to Louis and was about to leave when Louis stopped her. Louis shook his head. "Don't bother. It isn't worth it," he said to her, "and let him treat my son the way he did to me? No way!" Alyssa said as she pulled her hand away from his and walked off angrily. Louis stared at her departing figure with a small sigh. He knew that nothing was going to come out of what she planned to do. Talking to Ezekiel is like taking to a log of wood, a big waste of time. The moment Alyssa walked out of the waiting room, she saw him standing close to the door. His head rested on the wall like he was in deep thought. There were frown lines on his head. He still hadn't calmed down. When he noticed Alyssa's stare, he stood upright and stared back at her. "Why would you accuse Aiden for what happened to your lover?" she questioned immediately, not minding how tired he looked. "I'm not in the mood for your nagging, Alyssa." He muttered and was about to move away, but she pulled him back. "If you're not in the mood, I'll put you in the mood myself. How would you think a boy like him could make a grown woman fall?" she asked again. Her question made his mood sour. He wasn't willing to listen to anyone nor try to think differently. "You know what? It's all your fault," he uttered. "My fault?" Alyssa scoffed. "Yes, you never see anything wrong in his actions. You support him in every situation, not caring if he's wrong or right. If you had been a better mother, if you had done a better job in raising him, he wouldn't have grown up to be such a spoilt bra." Ezekiel wasn't able to complete his sentence when Alyssa suddenly smacked him on his left cheek, causing the spot to redden. He held his cheek in shock, not expecting the sudden slap. "You can accuse me of anything, but calling me a bad mother is the height of it. I did it alone. I was pregnant alone, I gave birth alone, and I raised my son alone when you were busy spending time with that whore you call your lover." Ezekiel had never seen such outburst from Alyssa before. Her reaction made him realize that he had just said the wrong thing. "Aiden is my sweat and blood. I alone know what I passed through to make sure he grows up to be what he is today. You of all people have no right to lecture me about how to train my child, not like you've ever raised one in your life." She screamed at him. Ezekiel's shock quickly switched back to anger the moment he heard her last sentence. "If your son hadn't done what he did, I would have a child to raise." Alyssa felt her heart break by what he said. She brushed her fingers through her hair and chuckled coldly, pain etched at the deepest part of her heart. She never thought those few words could hurt this way. "You want a child to raise, but you didn't look back when you murdered mine in cold blood," she muttered, tears threatening to slip out of her eyes when she remembered how much she begged him to let her keep her child, but he still made her go through a painful and forced abortion. Ezekiel's next words stopped at his throat. He was so angry that he said what he wasn't supposed to. "I've always known how much you hated me. You made sure to remind me every day that I was married to you. I knew you've always wanted Cindy as your Luna, but I just never knew it was this deep. If I had never ran away from you, you would have murdered Aiden too, since you always told me you never wanted a child from me." She sniffed sadly. "Alyssa?" He called out in regret, but was so much in pain to listen to him. "I'm sorry you were stuck with me when you should have been with your lover. I'm sorry for all the years you wasted on me. I'm sorry for coming into your life and messing it up. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but for what happened today, I'm not sorry. Aiden didn't do what you accuse him of, and I'll be damned if I let my son carry the weight of guilt over something he didn't do. Maybe all that happened today was fate. Since you murdered my baby, the moon goddess decided to take yours too," she muttered as a sadistic smirk appeared on her face. "Why would you say something like that? Cindy is in there fighting for her life, and why can't I say it? Wasn't she the same person that taunted me after you murdered my child? Now, you both will know what I felt that day," she yelled. "Alyssa." Alyssa ignored his warning gaze and let out a small sigh. This time she couldn't let him get to her anymore. She rubbed her temples tiredly and walked closer to him. "See, Ezekiel, I don't want to continue going back and forth with you. It's obvious you'll never change, and Cindy is the one you want, so just accept my rejection so I and my son can finally let you both be in peace," she said, and before he could reply, she walked away. Ezekiel felt his world stand still as he watched her leave. He was reminded of how she rejected him 5 years ago and how much he suffered during her disappearance. This wasn't the first time she was asking him to accept her rejection, but this time he was scared the most, because he had never seen her this resolute about leaving him. "Accept my rejection." That sentence clouded his head, drowning him with loneliness. He felt a swarm of butterflies tearing through his stomach. He couldn't separate with his mate nor his son again. These past few days were the best he ever had. He was finally able to have them as his family without any awkward moments. She might not have accepted him wholeheartedly, but he was getting there, and Aiden finally treated him like he was his father. He knew he had hurt her for a long time, but today he finally realized what she felt those years. "H.K. heartbreaking it miv been to lose you first child because of the person you love. Having time live as a side piece in your husband's house and constantly being taunted by his lover. She must have been really a line all those years, and now he had done the worse." He reminded her of her painful past. He felt guilty for everything he had done and said. Alyssa came out of the waiting room again, but this time with Aiden. She carried him in her arms and walked away before he could say anything. She acted like he didn't exist to her. Lewis also came out of the waiting room. He gave Ezekiel a short glance and shook his head before walking away. He didn't care about Lewis, as his eyes were mainly on Alyssa and his son. His actions today had put a big gap in their relationship, taking him back to the time he first saw them at Grim Hunter's Pack, back to square one. As he watched his family leave, he felt a pull towards them. He knew that there was no turning back this time. Alyssa meant what she said about leaving him, but he couldn't let them leave. He was about to chase after them when the doctor emerged from the ward. "You can come in now. Miss Cindy's situation has been stabilized," the doctor said to him. Ezekiel stared at the doctor before he turned back to face Alyssa, only to see that they were both out of sight. "Go after them. If you can clear the misunderstanding now, there might still be hope for us," his wolf advised. Ezekiel thought about what his wolf had said, but another part of him chose to stay. Cindy needed him at this moment because of her condition. He still has more time to talk with Alyssa and change her mind. Seeing him walk into Cindy's ward, his wolf sighed in frustration and disappointment. He wondered why he was made to be the wolf of such a stupid and stubborn human. Ezekiel entered the ward and walked towards where Cindy laid. Her eyes were red and puffy like she had been crying, and she was pale all over. She had always had a pale skin, but today it was worse. Seeing her in such a state, he feared the worst had happened. "How's the baby?" Ezekiel asked as a lump took its position in his throat. "We tried all we could, but we couldn't save the baby," the doctor answered as he put on a sad face. Ezekiel knew it was bound to happen. The amount blood she had lost was too much for the baby to survive. He felt heartbroken. He thought with this baby he could finally make up for his past mistakes. He had high hopes for his future with the child. He hoped that with this child, Aiden wouldn't hate him for murdering his first sibling. Now, this child is gone, just like the first, and both Alyssa and Aiden hates him now. Everything he had hoped for were nothing but mere wishes. Due to the amount of blood she had lost, she has to stay at the hospital for a while she should be under. The doctor went on, but Ezekiel wasn't listening. His mind was on the conversation he had with Alyssa earlier. Maybe all that happened today was fate. Since you murdered my baby, the moon goddess decided to take yours too. Alyssa's hurtful words rang in his head. She was right. He is paying for his sins. He must have been stupid to have thought that he would have the last laugh after everything he did and still keeps doing to her. This is his karma. Cindy felt immense happiness bubbling within her when she saw the look on Ezekiel's face. Her plan had succeeded, and Alyssa had chosen to leave by herself. She overheard the conversation between them earlier through her heightened hearing. Now, all that remains was to make sure Ezekiel accepts Alyssa's rejection. She struggled to sit up and snuggled close to Ezekiel. She had to prove that she was in a weak condition. "Don't worry too much about our loss. We will have another one in the nearest future," she muttered as she tried to rest his arms, but he held her back. "You can't be talking about making another child in this condition of yours," he said in a dismissive tone as he made her lie back on the bed. He wasn't in the mood to entertain any form of consolation. He had ruined everything good he had with his wrong choices. It took a lot for Cindy to hide the deep scowl that was threatening to appear on her face. Why was he acting so cold to her when she was the one that lost the baby? Even though he was acting like that to her, she wasn't willing to let go easily. She was almost at the winning end. "Are you going to stay with me?" she asked Ezekiel in a weak voice. Ezekiel didn't want to at first. He wanted to go and meet his mate and his son, but when he saw the look in her eyes, he felt pity. She wasn't in a position to be alone. "All right," he said as he sat on the chair close to her bed. "What the hell is wrong with you? Why do you keep being so foolish?" his wolf asked in anger. "You don't have any idea about how I feel, so don't tell me how to act," Ezekiel warned. "I can't know what you feel because, unlike you, I'm not a fool to keep believing her. The person you should be feeling pity on is our mate. After everything you've done to her, you have never tried to make things right," his wolf yelled. "I haven't tried. Everything I've been doing for the last few days. They mean nothing now. What you did today was enough to throw your efforts down the drain. Now she wants to leave again. Even Aiden doesn't love you like we used to. And you know what? You're nothing but a fool. A stubborn fool," Swolf said before shutting him off. His wolf's words made him replay what happened today again and again. Alyssa's words and Aiden's expression when he accused him for attacking Cindy pierced him deeply in his heart. Has he really lost his family? His chain of thoughts were broken when he heard sobs. He looked over only to see Cindy crying. She leaned close to him again. She smirked against his chest when he didn't push her away and whispered in tears, "I can't believe that our baby is gone. I didn't even get to see his face." She wrapped her hands around her belly as she leaned closer to him. Ezekiel felt immense discomfort, but he couldn't push her away as she was in pain. Cindy took that as her chance and kept leaning further and further towards him while his discomfort only grew. All of a sudden, her face was inches away from his. She was about to kiss him when he felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. That was the perfect chance for him, and he took it immediately. He pulled away from her embrace and stood up. He checked his phone and saw a message from his personal assistant. He had texted to remind him about the upcoming pack celebration. Also, about the tasks at the company that needed his immediate attention. It was a perfect excuse for him to finally leave, so without giving any explanation, he walked out. Cindy scowled in anger as she watched him leave. Even after what had happened today, he was still being stubborn. "No need to get angry, love. You've already succeeded in fooling him. It won't take long for you to finally chase away his Nate and take her position." The doctor muttered as he sat next to her. Cindy smiled and placed a small peck on the doctor's cheeks. "You're right, babe. No matter what happens, I'm still the winner," she answered as she sat up on the bed without Abai's struggle, unlike earlier when she was faking being in pain. The doctor chuckled and pulled her in for a deep kiss. Cindy didn't resist and kissed him back like she had been starved of his lips. Within this kiss, her thoughts wandered off to Ezekiel. "No matter what you do, Ezekiel, Alyssa and her bastard son will still end up leaving you," she thought to herself as she kissed the doctor harder. "Thank you so much for the ride," Alyssa said to Louis as she came down from the car with Aiden in her arms. They were currently in front of her house. He had offered to give her a ride at the hospital, and she immediately agreed because she wasn't in the mood to hire a taxi. "It's fine, Alyssa," Louis answered as he got down from the car. "Also, thank you for being there for Aiden. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there to defend him," Alyssa said again. She was very happy that Louis was there to see what had really happened. Even though Ezekiel is still being stubborn, it doesn't matter. As long as there was another eyewitness, her son was innocent. "It's fine, Alyssa. I've told you already not to thank me for the things I do for you. All I hope is that you won't make any drastic decision after what happened today," Louis said. Alyssa felt a huge lump in her throat. She didn't know how to tell Louis that she plans to leave again. She plans to go to a faraway place where no one would find her or her son. Even though she had managed to build a life for herself and her son here, it would be much better to move away. Protecting their sanity is better than staying at a place they were obviously not wanted. She only nodded her head and let out a small smile, but it wasn't enough to convince Louis. He moved closer to her and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Alyssa, I know I'm the reason all these are happening. If I hadn't disclosed your whereabouts to Ezekiel, he wouldn't have forced you back, and I'm so sorry for that." He apologized sincerely. "It's not your fault. I know how Ezekiel does things. He must have forced out the truth from you by using threats, so you don't have to blame yourself. But still, I shouldn't have let it out so easily. If I held on much longer, things would probably be different." Louis had been living in guilt since Alyssa came back to Moonkeeper's pack. Even though Alyssa tries to hide everything with a wide smile, he knew she preferred living at Grim Hunter's pack. Life was so much peaceful for her there. "It's best if we stop dwelling in the past. It was bound to happen anyway, so no need to am yourself anymore." Louis took in a deep breath as he tried to let go of his guilt. "I just want you to know that I'm always here for you. Whatever you need, I'm one phone call away," he reassured. Alyssa let out a small smile. At least, she wasn't alone like before. "I will," she muttered. Louis nodded his head in understanding. He took one last look at her before entering his car. "Bye." Alyssa and Aiden waved at him as they watched him drive off. After his car was out of sight, Alyssa walked into the house, Aiden still in her arms. She placed Aiden down and walked into his room. She brought out a suitcase and started arranging his clothes there. "What are you doing, Mommy?" Aiden asked inquisitively. "Packing," she answered curtly as she brought out all of his clothes from the drawers. "Why?" he asked again. Alyssa stopped what she was doing and turned to face him. She sighed and crouched close to where he stood. "I know I promised that we are going to build a new life here, but we can't stay here any longer. After what happened today, I don't think things are going to be better between your father and I," she muttered. "So we are leaving?" he asked as he stared at her innocently. "I'm afraid so, but I promise you that our next stop will be the last. No more moving after this one," she reassured. "It's fine, Mom. As long as you're with me, any place is fine." Alyssa's cold heart warmed up upon hearing her son's heartfelt words. He always manages to make everything better for her. "I love you so much, baby," she muttered as she pulled him into a warm hug. "I love you too, Mom," he answered as he hugged her back. After being in each other's arms for a few more seconds, Alyssa pulled away. They had no time to waste as they needed to leave before Ezekiel would find out that they were already gone. As she arranged this clothes, Aiden brought out the toys he wanted to take with him. They were interrupted when a sudden knock was heard on the door. Alyssa felt her heart leap to her throat. She prayed within her that it wasn't Ezekiel. To be more safe, she hid the luggage before going to answer the door. There she saw Simon, Ezekiel's beta, standing at the doorpost. Did Ezekiel send him here? She thought to herself, since there was no reason Simon would want to see her. "What do you want?" she asked in a rather aggressive manner after she hid Aiden behind her. She wondered if Ezekiel had sent him to come humiliate her more than he already did. "I was asked to give you something," he said. "Tell Ezekiel I'm not interested whatsoever he has planned. Please leave," he muttered and attempted to close the door, but Simon held the door. "It isn't from Ezekiel," he answered as he pushed himself into the room. Alyssa frowned in anger. "He's just like Ezekiel, so stubborn and won't leave when asked nicely." "It's from Ezekiel's father. He left something important for you before he died, but he said you could only receive it when you returned back to the family house." "The main pack," the beta announced. Upon hearing Simon's words, Alyssa felt pure rage and bitterness. It made her recall her teenage years spent there. Years ago, before she got married to Ezekiel, the whole family lived at the family house before they moved to the city when Ezekiel's father was sick. The family house held so much painful memories for her, so she had vowed to never go back there. She picked on by everyone, including the villagers. When they left, she was very happy, because she thought things would be different in the city, but she was wrong. It became worse, especially after Ezekiel's father's death. She never had the chance to go back on her words after her marriage with Ezekiel, since he never acknowledged her as his Luna. Aiden's ears perked up upon hearing the words pack and family home. "Are we going to our family home? Will I get to see our family?" Aiden bombarded Alyssa with a lot of questions. Since he had returned with Alyssa to Moonstone Keeper's pack, he hadn't seen any family members except Ezekiel and Emma. He wondered if there were any else. He badly wanted to know his roots. Seeing the anticipation in Aiden's eyes, Alyssa felt torn. She had already vowed not to return back there, and now her son wants to go. No matter the issues between you and Ezekiel, Aiden still deserves to know more about his roots and the pack, as he is destined to be the future alpha, her wolf advised. Alyssa sighed deeply. "I need more time to think about it," she said to Simon reluctantly. "The item I mentioned might be related to your background," Simon said to her. Alyssa's heart skipped a bit upon hearing his revelation. There was something related to her past and no one told her about it before? Was it something that could lead her to her origin? Should she return to the pack and find out what it is? There's no need to ask any more questions. Do you want to miss the chance to find out about your birthplace just because you have issues with Ezekiel? Her wolf asked. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard a loud voice outside the house. All of a sudden, the door was kicked open and Sheila, Ezekiel's mother, stormed in. "You? Where's that bastard son of yours?" she asked as she pointed at Alyssa in anger. "Bring him out here." He needs to pay for murdering the pack's future alpha. Alyssa's train of thoughts were interrupted when she heard Sheila's loud voice outside. What is she doing here? How did she find my house? Alyssa wondered, but she had no one to answer her questions. She had moved out from the mansion to avoid anyone related to Ezekiel and Ezekiel himself, but it seems like a waste of time, money, and efforts because they all seem to find her whenever she tries to run away. It was like they were all glued to each other. It felt ironic. They don't like nor want her around, but they still won't let her be. There was only one reason Sheila would come to her house today. Take Aiden inside. She ordered Simon. Simon didn't disobey her order because, with the way Sheila was screaming at the top of her lungs, he knew that trouble was looming. The moment Simon led Aiden to his room, Sheila stormed into the house. Her eyes roamed around the living room frantically, in search for someone, Aiden rather. "What are you doing here?" Alyssa asked, drawing the woman's attention to her. With her index finger pointed, "You!" she screamed as she walked towards Alyssa. "Where's that bastard son of yours?" she asked in anger. "Bring him out here. He needs to pay for murdering the pack's future alpha. Bastard!" That word rang in Alyssa's head, making her blood boil. "I hope it isn't my son you're referring to?" she asked, provoking Sheila the more. After learning about Cindy's miscarriage from the Emma, Sheila was raging mad. She had never liked Aiden since he's Alyssa's offspring, but she had to take him in because he was her son's only heir. Now, there was a much better and stronger candidate to take up the position, and the bitch's son killed him. Without warning, she slapped Alyssa hard on the face. Alyssa held her cheek in shock, not expecting the sudden impact. "You unfortunate wench. I've always known you were no good. Since you came into our lives, nothing has ever worked fine for us. It's always one tragedy to another." "I warned Wilson. I warned him that adding you to our family would only bring us more trouble, but he didn't listen. He brought you in and worst, made you get married to my only son. I tried to overlook it, hoping things would be better, but now the worst has happened. It's all your fault. You couldn't raise your son well, and that's the reason he's action like a thug. First, he bullied Emma's son, and now he has killed a baby right in its mother's womb. Ezekiel has lost a strong heir, all because of the both of you." Her nose flared up as she screamed at Alyssa. Alyssa was still in shock, as she didn't expect Sheila to hit her all of a sudden. She had never done that before. She only assaulted Alyssa with words in the past. Alyssa gritted her teeth in anger as she tried to overlook the pain. Retaliating was useless because the woman was older than her, and she still wanted to give her some respect as she's her son's grandmother. "What about Aiden? Isn't he strong enough to be Ezekiel's heir?" Alyssa asked her. Sheila scoffed as she eyed Alyssa from head to toe. "How's the son of a mute a strong heir? Do you know how embarrassing it was when I found out that he's Ezekiel's son?" she asked, her tone laced with disgust. Alyssa balled her fists as a way to stop herself from smacking Sheila right on the face. "Your bloodline is too lowly, unlike Cindy's. Cindy is the former Beta's daughter and has a stronger bloodline unlike yours. Look at your son. He's just as weak as you are. You can tell he's the offspring of an Omega from just a mile away." Sheila snorted. That was the highest Alyssa could take from her or anyone. For years, she had endured being humiliated and taunted for things she had no power over. She let her tormentors be, not because she was weak or an Omega, but because most of them were related to Ezekiel, whom she loved and had dedicated her whole life on. Now that they were divorced and she had no love for him, she couldn't continue enduring the insults being constantly rained on her and her son, no matter who they are or if they are related to her son. Without wasting time, she raised her hand and landed a hot slap on Sheila's cheek, making her head whip to the side. Sheila let out a small yelp and she staggered back in both shock and pain. She stared at Alyssa, stunned that the once weak and mute girl would raise her hands to her one day. Alyssa let out a smirk and leaned closer to the stunned-looking Sheila. "If my son is weak because he's my blood, that means your son's blood is also weak. I mean, if an Omega and an Alpha have a child together, isn't the offspring supposed to have a stranger bloodline than other Omegas? Since your precious Alpha bloodline added couldn't make any difference in my son's own, That only makes your family's blood weak." Alyssa whispered, her tone carrying a hint of taunt and venom. Sheila's eyes were blazing red. Alyssa had chewed more than she could swallow, and she had to teach the brat a lesson, but before Sheila could attack Alyssa, she landed another slap on the same cheek. Sheila staggered again. She never expected Alyssa would be this fast and strong. Then she realized Alyssa was different. She had changed from who she used to be. Even though she never hit Alyssa in the past, she enjoyed watching others bully her. She never failed to notice how Alyssa never fights back. She had always seen Alyssa as a weak and timid girl, always waiting for Ezekiel to come rescue her. Alyssa's stance was menacing, but Sheila wasn't scared. She was angry, however, due to the immense pain she felt on her cheek and the fact that Alyssa was challenging her. She couldn't let the brat go after she had just humiliated her, so she did the next thing that came into her mind. She pulled Alyssa's long hair, making her bend to the woman's height. Before she could take that chance to overpower Alyssa, Alyssa pushed her with all her might. Sheila landed butt first on the hard floor. She felt great pain at the affected area, but she couldn't show it. She didn't want Alyssa to think she had won, so she stood up to attack Alyssa again, only to be dealt with the third slap. Due to the pain Alyssa felt on her scalp, she was ready to deal mercilessly with the shameless woman when someone stopped her. Her raised hand was caught midair by someone much more stronger than her. She turned to lash out at whoever it was, but her words were caught in her throat when she saw Ezekiel staring down at her with an icy gaze. "Haven't you done enough?" he asked angrily. Earlier that day, Ezekiel took in a deep breath as he plopped down tiredly on the swivel chair. He loosened his neckties and took off his suit jacket. Today had been really hectic for him. He had to deal with a lot of dramas, heartbreaks, and worst, Alyssa threatening to leave him with their son. He tried to clear his mind with the huge workload laying on his desk, but he just couldn't concentrate. He couldn't forget how Alyssa and Aiden stared at him as they left. He regretted saying those harsh words to Aiden. No matter the severity of what the boy had done, he shouldn't have lashed at him that way. Aiden's stare reminded him of the way Alyssa used to look at him 5 years ago. Shock, pain, sadness, and disappointment. Now that Alyssa had threatened to leave him, it made him scared. He couldn't bear the mere thought of being away from them again. Anxiety slowly replaced the feelings he had, and he became unstable. Instead of sitting here and fearing the worst, why don't you go and stop her before she decides to leave for the second time? His wolf advised for the umpteenth time. She can't leave me over something like this. This isn't the first time she's threatening to leave me. I know her. We will get through this sooner or later, Ezekiel answered. He thought, rather, hoped he was right. Alyssa had always been threatening to leave since he brought her back, but she had never for once go through with her threats. The highest she had done was move to a new apartment with Aiden. You think this time is the same as those times? It seems like you don't understand the severity of your actions. You humiliated her. His wolf screamed at him. How did I? You blamed Aiden for attacking Cindy when everyone knows he didn't. Even Louis could see what you were so blind to. Worst of all, you called her a bad mother and blamed her too. Your actions and words made her think that you chose Cindy over her and her son. But that isn't true. I said some words I shouldn't have said. But you never settled to apologize or even give her a listening ear. You made her and her son feel unwanted. Do you think she would still want to remain with you after today? Because I wouldn't. Ezekiel took in a harsh gulp, finally realizing he had gone too far today. If Alyssa leaves again, it would be the end of him, and he couldn't let that happen. Go to her and explain everything before it's too late, his wolf warned. Ezekiel still had work to do at the company, so he decided to make sure Alyssa never leaves till he has the time to go see her. So he sent for Simon. I need you to go to Alyssa's house and make sure both she and Aiden don't leave, he ordered the moment he felt Simon entered the office. Simon could immediately sense the distress in Ezekiel's words and on his face, so he decided to give it a try, since Alyssa was known to be a very stubborn woman. After Simon left, Ezekiel tried to focus on work, but his head wasn't in what he was doing. His mind kept drifting back to Alyssa and Aiden, guilt and worry clouding his heart. All of a sudden, he felt someone trying to connect to him through the mind link. It was Simon. "Are they still around?" Ezekiel asked, hopeful when he connected to the mind link. "Yes, but there's an issue. Madam Sheila is here and things aren't looking good," Simon told him. Ezekiel jumped out of his seat and rushed out of his office the moment he heard his beta's words, dropping everything he had planned to do. He knew his mother and what she could do. She obviously didn't go there to chit-chat with Alyssa. Someone must have told her about what had happened today. He feared for both Alyssa's and his son's well-being. Within a few minutes, his car was already parked in front of Alyssa's house. He rushed into the building, but what he saw wasn't what he had expected. Alyssa had pushed his mother, struck her, and was attempting to do it again. Before she could land the second slap, he caught her wrist. His icy eyes were on her, his blood rising as seconds passed. What gave her the guts to raise her hand on his mother? If she had no fear when she attacked his mother, that means she had no respect for him. She was challenging him without fear, and that only increased his anger. When Alyssa turned to see who it was, her eyes held shock, but for just a split moment. The anger in her returned, and it was worse than before. When Ezekiel noticed the look in her eyes, his emotions wavered. He wondered if he had judged too soon, if what he had seen was only little of what had actually happened. "Haven't you done enough?" Alyssa scoffed when she heard that question. She hadn't even done half of what Ezekiel and his family had been doing to her. She tried to pull away from his hold as she wasn't done with Sheila yet, but Ezekiel's grip was firm, making it impossible for her. "Calm down," he said in a soft voice, unlike the tone he had used on her initially. Alyssa almost laughed when she heard his words. Calm down? He wants her to calm down after what his mother did to her and her son. Why should she let the woman go scot-free after she had raised her hands on her and brutally insulted her son? "Let go of me," Alyssa yelled angrily as she tried harder to free herself from Ezekiel's tight grip. Her face was haggard and her hair scattered because of how Sheila had dragged it. She looked like a mad woman, but she didn't care. She had to teach Sheila a big lesson so she would never cross her or her son, ever again. "Mom." Alyssa stopped dead on her tracks when she heard a soft voice behind her. "What is he doing here? I thought he left with Simon." Alyssa thought to herself. Alyssa took in a deep breath and finally pulled away from Ezekiel. It was easier this time because he let her go. She arranged her disheveled hair with her fingers. She didn't want her son to see her in such a state. She let out a wide smile that didn't reach her eyes before turning to face Aiden. His eyes were red like he had been crying. He ran to Alyssa and hugged her legs tightly. "I'm scared, Mommy," he whispered as more tears poured out of his eyes. Alyssa's smile slowly faded. She bent to Aiden's level and wrapped her hands around him to comfort him. Sheila scoffed when she saw what was happening. "You see? Why won't your bastard act like a thug when you're—" "That's enough!" Ezekiel yelled in a stern tone, making both Alyssa and Sheila stunned. Ezekiel had never raised his voice at his mother before. Neither had he ever protected Alyssa from her harsh words. Sheila was lost for words. Her son was action this way, all because of these two lowborns. "Ezekiel, I hope you realize who you're talking to," she said. "I do, and I'm asking you to stop this drama," Ezekiel yelled again. "You're yelling at me when I'm the one that was assaulted?" she asked in surprise. "Why did you come here?" Ezekiel asked back. "For you. I came here to help deal with both of them. They joined hands in murdering your future heir, and you're still supporting them?" Alyssa couldn't listen to their fight anymore. Every word that left Sheila's mouth made her angrier, and she didn't want to lose control in front of her son. Even though Ezekiel was defending her, he was the cause of everything that had happened. If he hadn't forced them back, they would have been living a more peaceful life, with less drama. She picked up Aiden in her arms and walked away before she could hear anything that make her decide to stay. She carried Aiden and took him to her room, which was far from the living room. That way, she didn't have to listen to them anymore. She placed him on the bed and sat next to him. He was still in tears because he blamed himself for what was happening. If he had just left, Cindy wouldn't have faked falling, and he wouldn't have been blamed for it. To cheer him up, Alyssa decided to do the one thing she had vowed to never do. "Would you like to go to the family house with me?" she asked. Aiden's tears stopped immediately. He looked up to face Alyssa, his eyes lit up, but for a moment, his sad expression immediately returned. "But the mister is going to be there. I don't want to see him again," Aiden whispered, his voice quivering like he was about to burst into tears again. Alyssa felt her heart break upon hearing his words. Her fears had finally come to pass. Ezekiel had succeeded in disappointing Aiden too. Now his thoughts of him had changed. She pulled Aiden for another hug. "Don't worry, I'll take you to there and you won't have to cross paths with him," Alyssa assured. Aiden pulled away from the hug and looked up to stare at her, his eyes filled with hope. "Really?" he asked. "Sure, I assure you, you'll love it there," she said, even though living there was a nightmare for her. A smile found its way to Aiden's face. "Thank you so much, Mommy," he said. Alyssa smiled softly at him. She wanted the best things for her son, even though she suffered because of the same things, as long as it made him happy. She also had to find the truth about her background, because after what Simon had just told her, she was convinced that there was more to her roots than she was told. With the death anniversary of Wilson, Ezekiel's father, approaching, Alyssa knew she had no choice but to return back to the place that had made her life a living hell. Days later, the day for them to finally head to the family house came. For the first time in a long while, Aiden didn't wait for his mother to wake him up. He was at the doorpost, his eyes shining brightly as he watched convoy that was supposed to take them there being parked at the driveway. "Mom, come on! The car is here!" he screamed out in excitement. The day before, he had helped Alyssa arrange his small luggage. He couldn't wait to see where he was from. Since the day he heard about the family house, he had been dreaming about it. He wondered who he would find there, if he would finally be able to make a friend for once in his life. He hoped since he was related to the people there, they would love him. When Alyssa heard Aiden's loud voice, she came out of the house holding both of their luggage. "Let me take this," Aiden said as he collected his luggage from her. It wasn't heavy, as Alyssa didn't plan for them to stay there for a very long time, so Aiden could easily drag it with him. He pulled the luggage behind him as he ran in excitement to the fancy-looking limousine. "Stop running or you'll fall," his mother warned, and he heeded immediately. He stopped running but still didn't walk slowly. He was too happy to control his legs. Ezekiel stood next to another car as he watched them silently. Scuff. His heart softened when he saw how happy they looked. Would they still be this happy if I show my face? He wondered when he recalled the conversation between the both of them that day. When Ezekiel saw Alyssa and Aiden leaving, he felt the urge to run after them, but his mother stopped him. "What are you doing? I'm talking to you, but you want to walk out on me all because of them?" she asked as she pouted at them. Disdain and disappointment laced in her tone. "Mom, please go back home," he pleaded, but that only made Sheila chuckle in anger. "Why should I leave when that bitch and her son are still here? Why did you even bring them back in the first place?" she questioned in anger. "Because they are my family," he yelled, making his mother's heart leap. "Did you just yell at me?" she asked in shock. "Don't make it harder, Mom. Just leave. You're only making things worse for me." His voice softened and he muttered in a tired tone. "I'm making things worse for you? You're the one that made all these happen. When she left, we were all fine. Our lives went back to the way it was. Look what has happened when you decided to bring them back." Sheila sneered. "Really? Were we all fine, or was it just you?" Ezekiel asked. Sheila opened her mouth, but no words came out. She felt like she had been caught. "Did you know the years for hardships I passed through in her absence? Do you have any idea about how hard it was for me to even go back to the house we shared together?" he asked. "Her leaving was for the best. She wasn't meant for you," she said as she held his arm to console him. He scoffed and pulled away from her. "Don't try to tell me what's best for me when you don't even know me that well." "Ezekiel, if you did, you'll stop what you think you're doing and never pressurize Alyssa and Aiden anymore." "Why should I stop? They need to pay for what happened to your heir," she yelled back. "What happened today wasn't intentional. Accidents happen every time. Aiden is my rightful heir, and nothing, not even the baby from Cindy, was going to change that. What? Sheila was more than stunned when she heard Ezekiel's words. You heard me right, Mother. Now leave. You're disturbing the peace of this house, he said. No way. There's no way I'll ever let that Omega be your heir. As long as I'm still alive, that weak boy will never be the future Alpha, she yelled at him. I don't really care about what you plan to do. Aiden will take over after me, and that's it. There's nothing you can do to change that. Ezekiel answered her, and then signaled to Simon to take her away. No, don't do what you'll regret later, Ezekiel. You need a stronger heir for your pack. You need to impregnate Cindy again, she yelled as Simon dragged her with him out of the house. When Ezekiel could hardly hear her voice anymore, he let out a sigh of relief. Finally, she was gone. He decided to go look for his family first. He needed to clear out the misunderstanding and ask for their forgiveness. Like he had expected, they were both in Alyssa's room. He was about to enter when he heard some words from Aiden. The mister is going to be there. I don't want to see him again. Ezekiel felt his air pipe tighten, making it hard for him to breathe. His son doesn't want him. What has he done? It felt like 5 years ago, except that time Alyssa was the one that didn't want him, and she still doesn't. He could practically hear the disappointment in Aiden's voice when he uttered those words. He rubbed his chest to calm his fast-beating heart, but it didn't help. Ezekiel instantly regretted everything that he had done. He caused this, so he deserved everything that was happening. How was he going to open the boy's heart now? Since none of them would like to set eyes on him, he silently walked away, the guilt of what he had done weighing heavily on his heart. He had caused an unforgivable mess. Since that day, Ezekiel had avoided having any conversation with Alyssa. He hoped that she would grow to forgive him if he gave her the space she had always wanted. He would have ridden in another car, but he knew doing that would make the pack members disrespect Alyssa the more. He wanted everyone to know that they were his family and Aiden was his rightful heir. So he decided not to give her the space she wanted for just today. The air in the car was tense as they rode to the family house together. Even though they were seated far from each other, it couldn't stop the atmosphere from being awkward. Aiden was the only one that didn't realize what was going on. Even though Ezekiel was with them, he acted like he didn't see him. He wasn't going to let Ezekiel's presence ruin his day. He kept asking his mother questions about the pack, completely ignoring Ezekiel. Alyssa smiled as she patiently answered all of his questions. Their conversation helped brighten up the air in the car. She told Aiden about her childhood, completely omitting the bad part. He didn't need to hear that side. She also told him about Ezekiel, but she didn't let Aiden know who she was talking about, as she just referred him to as her playmate. Ezekiel watched her as she kept recounting the past to Alyssa, a wave of nostalgia and guilt washing over him. He was the one to blame for everything Alyssa had passed through. If he hadn't bullied her or given the others the chance to, things would have been much better between them. After riding for a few more hours, the convoy finally crossed the main pack's territory. Alyssa didn't have to look out to realize that they were getting closer. The strong and familiar scent of pine filled the air, unlike dusty air in the city. This was where Alyssa had grew up. A few minutes later, the car stopped. Alyssa got out of the limousine with Aiden by her side. She looked around the familiar surroundings. Nothing had really changed. The trees were still as beautiful, and the sweet scent of the flowers reminded her of some of the good parts of her pasts. If only the people were as peaceful as the surroundings. All of a sudden, she saw people rushing towards her. "Luna! Luna! Our Luna is back!" they said in sign language when they saw her with Ezekiel. Alyssa stared at them in shock, wondering if they were the same people that made her life a living hell years ago. She was almost convinced they were different until she started to recognize most of them. Years ago, they had only learnt sign language to issue harsh commands to her, but now they were praising her. How ironic. Did they still think she was the same mute girl they used to bully? Well, if they do, it's time to get some things straight. Don't refer to me as your Luna, because I never was and I will never be your Luna. That means I'll never follow any of your orders. she said at the top of her lungs. Her clear words immediately caused a stir amongst the huge crowd that had formed. "She can talk now. How come? Is Cindy officially the Luna?" they murmured amongst themselves. Ezekiel frowned at what she said. After what he did to make them recognize her and Aiden, she had ruined it by just saying a few words. Before he could say anything, Alyssa grabbed Aiden by the wrist and walked away with him. She no longer cared about the title or their opinion of her. They could think whatever they wanted as long as they don't disturb her or her son. She no longer cared about the title or their opinion of her. They could think whatever they wanted as long as they don't disturb her or her son. The crowd that had formed around them created a wide space for their and Aiden to pass through. Their eyes held surprise and inferiority as they watched her leave. Through her stance and her fierceness while she talked, they knew she wasn't one to be trifled with, unlike before. Now that she could talk, they feared crossing her paths. Years ago, they were able to bully her, mostly because she was a mute. Even though Ezekiel helped defend her sometimes, there were times when he wasn't around. At that time, he was training to become the alpha, so he wasn't with her most of the time. Also, that was when he started dating Cindy. Since she was a mute with only Ezekiel as her protector, they had the perfect time to bully her. It became worse when Emma became their leader. It felt like they were given the go-ahead to do whatever they pleased with her. Since Emma was Ezekiel's sister, Alyssa chose to stay quiet. She didn't want to be the reason for siblings to grow distant from each other. If only that would have been the case. After finding out Alyssa was his mate, Ezekiel's affection for her suddenly changed into pure hate. He blamed her for everything, and that gave Emma the chance to do as she pleased with her, even in his presence. After Alyssa left with Aiden, away from the shocked and confused faces of the large crowd, she led him to a more quieter place. This place used to be her home, so despite being away for long, she still remembers how it used to be as they hardly changed anything. So she needed no guidance in finding her way. After walking for a while, they came across a series of gravestones with lots of names inscribed on them. It was the pack's burial ground. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Aiden asked. He clutched Alyssa's hands tightly while he looked around over and over again, almost making Alyssa laugh. She couldn't believe that a burial ground could scare Aiden. "Relax, baby. It's just a cemetery. It won't bite," she assured in a teasing tone. "You don't know that," he muttered as he kept looking around frantically. "I know because I used to come here all the time when I was a teenager." Aiden turned to stare at his mother in confusion. "Why?" he asked. "Because this is the only place that gives me peace of mind. Staying here, I was able to hide from my troubles," she answered as she stared around like she was looking for something. "You had troubles?" Alyssa stopped looking around and stared down to match her son's gaze. His eyes held pity as he stared back at her. Her eyes widened when she realized that she had said too much. "It's not what you think. I meant troubles like school stuffs and all that," she explained in one breath, hoping he would stop thinking about something different, but Aiden had already gotten his answer. Since when they had initially arrived, he could feel how tensed his mother was. He realized she hated it here, especially when she talked to those people. This place might have scarred her. He felt guilty for being so excited, making her come back here. He decided to stop asking questions since it seemed like his mother was only hiding things from him to protect him. After walking for a while, they stopped in front of a huge gravestone. It had the name Alpha Wilson Crawford inscribed on it. It looked different from the other gravestones. It was more gigantic, and it was given better treatment, unlike the rest. "Who's he, Mom?" Aiden asked after he read the name on the tombstone. "He's someone dear to me. He was the one that took me in, clothed me, and fed me when I thought I had lost it all." Alyssa answered with a smile as she placed her finger on the stone, gently caressing the inscribed named. Ezekiel's father had been the only one apart from Ezekiel that warmly welcomed her into the pack. He treated her like she was his family, his blood daughter, and always protected her. Alyssa could still remember when she was informed that he was sick. She felt her world had shattered that day. Then when he died, she felt a part of her had died with him. She knelt in front of the stone and gently placed the flowers she had brought with her there. "This is your grandfather. He's Ezekiel's father," she said to Aiden. Aiden's eyes widened in surprise, and then he bowed a little to show his respect. He was a kind and gentle soul. If not for him taking me in after I lost my family, I wouldn't be here, and I would have never had you, she added, tears pouring out of her eyes as she spoke. Aiden could understand her sadness as she talked. It reminded him of how he felt when thought he didn't have a father. He walked closer to his mother and wrapped his tiny hands around her to comfort her. She hugged Aiden back for a while, taking her time to calm her emotions before she pulled away. She wiped her tears before turning to face the gravestone again. "Hello, Dad," she started. "I'm so sorry for not coming back here since the day you were buried." She croaked out an apology while holding back another sob that was threatening to burst out of her mouth. "I'm so sorry for not fulfilling your wish in becoming the next Luna, but I tried," she whispered. "I tried to make Ezekiel love me, to make him see me in a different light, and to make him accept me as his mate, but I guess some things aren't meant to happen," she muttered as she sniffed. "After giving up on Ezekiel, I found happiness. He was able to leave me with a precious gift before we went our separate ways." She muttered as she stared at Aiden for a short moment. "I never regretted leaving him for once in my life, and I don't even feel lonely like I thought I would. Leaving him was one of the best choices I have ever made for myself, and also deciding to have my baby. Now that I have more important responsibilities, I sincerely wish Ezekiel happiness, even if he chooses to still remain with Cindy. I don't really care about them anymore. Once again, Dad, I'm so sorry for not fulfilling your wishes," she added, ending her tribute to him. Aiden gently placed his hand on his mother's shoulders and gave her an encouraging smile. Alyssa smiled back and gave the gravestone one last stare. She was about to stand up when she noticed intricate patterns etched onto the gravestone. She had a feeling of familiarity, like she had seen those patterns before, but she couldn't pinpoint where she saw them. Feeling puzzled, she stood up and dusted her knee. They couldn't stay at the graveyard for long as it was already getting darker. She also needed to find out where she had seen those patterns and what they meant, so she left with Aiden back to the pack house. Ezekiel frowned at what she said. After what he did to make them recognize her and Aiden, she had ruined it by just saying a few words. Before he could say anything, Alyssa grabbed Aiden by the wrist and walked away with him. Ezekiel let out an exasperated sigh as he watched them leave. Alyssa always knows how to put him in a spot. He didn't call them back nor chase after them because he knew it would just be a waste of time. Alyssa wasn't going to listen to him. After they were out of sight, all eyes turned back to him, waiting for an explanation to clarify what Alyssa had just said, and he wasted no time in doing so. The Luna's position of this pack is still Alyssa's. No matter what she says, she is and will always be my Luna, and her son is my one and only heir, he declared in a firm tone. The crowd went quiet immediately, confusion spreading everywhere like a gust of cold wind. Alyssa had just said she wasn't the Luna and would never be one, while Ezekiel was saying a different thing. But since Ezekiel was their alpha, they decided not to ask any questions and just believe his words. Though, most people still had doubts about what he had just said. Not everyone wanted Alyssa to be the Luna, even though they had just praised her. They only did that because Ezekiel was around and they wanted to get on his good side. Since Alyssa left, their thoughts about her had hardly changed. They still saw her as someone below them because she was a mute. She was the last surviving member of her pack, and she was wolfless. Seeing the doubt in his pack members' eyes, Ezekiel began to grasp the reality of Alyssa's suffering in the pack. He wondered if things were worse than what he thought was going on then. He knew he wasn't always there to protect her, since he was training to be the future alpha then. She must have been ostracized, bullied, and controlled. Worse, she wasn't even able to speak for herself. Maybe that was the reason she never wanted to go back. Even whenever it was time for his father's death anniversary, she always chose to stay at the city. He thought it was because she knew he and his family didn't want her there with him. He always went with Cindy, and now he felt bad for the decisions he had taken. Merely thinking about what she must have passed through made him feel guilty, and at the same time, it made his blood boil. His gaze became harsh and cold as he looked over at the crowd. Like the pack members knew what he was thinking about, most of them lowered their gazes as guilt washed over them. Even though he speculates things were much worse, he felt he still needed to confirm, so he connected through the mind link with Simon. I'm sure you've heard a lot about what Alyssa had passed through here years ago, before we moved. He sucked in a harsh breath, unable to ask the question. His heart felt heavy as he blamed himself. His beta immediately understood what he was planning to ask, and he answered the question. To Supply put it, she suffered greatly here. It became worse after your father's sickness. She was bullied, lied against, treated like a slave by everyone, most especially from your... Simon paused, not knowing if he should let out the remaining words. My mother and sister, right? Ezekiel asked as he let out a wry smile while Simon just nodded. The people that were supposed to be her family became her tormentors, and he wasn't any different from them. He remembered when they found out they were mates. That was probably the reason she was hell-bent on marrying him. Perhaps she thought that being his wife would save her from their mistreatment, or maybe reduce it, but it only became worse. She had expected to find solace in him, but that was when living in hell fully began for her. He blamed her for everything, for not being able to get married Cindy, for being his mate, like she was the moon goddess that paired the both of them together. He wronged her in so many ways. He broke her mentally, physically, and emotionally. He even forced an abortion on her, made her work endlessly when she was still recovering from the forced abortion. He cheated on her every single time he got, and he never failed to rub it on her face. He hid their status from everyone, making it look like she was just his bed warmer at night. He forced himself on her most times whenever he was drunk, but she hardly ever fights back because of their mate bond, but that only made him term her a cheap slut. He thought she caged him in a loveless marriage because of his status, not knowing it was the other way round. He loved him greatly, but he only toyed with her emotions. He gave Cindy everything she ever asked for, while his wife and mate was made to live like a servant, always catering to the needs of his family and lover. He used her anyhow, anywhere and any time he liked, not caring how much she suffered. He thought that no matter how much he humiliated her, she would still stay with him because she loved him so much. She did stay, for 5 years. She endured it all for 5 years. Now he still made another mistake, making her grow more distant from him. He needed to make amends for everything he has done. He couldn't lose her again. The preparations for the PAX celebration made Ezekiel busy, so when he returned to the pack house, he was buried with work. For the first time in a long time, he could actually concentrate. There was no image occasionally popping up in his head, no memories that made him feel guilty, and his wolf didn't even disturb him. Ezekiel felt peace for once, but it was disrupted when he heard a knock on the door. Come in, he grunted, and Simon walked into the office. Sorry to disturb you. He apologized when he noticed the frustrated look on Ezekiel's face. What is it? Ezekiel asked, ignoring his apology. I just wanted to remind you about the item your father kept for Alyssa. Since she's back in the family house now, don't you think it's high time you give it to her? Simon asked. Ezekiel's gaze immediately softened when he heard his question. I haven't forgotten. I plan to deliver it myself today, he answered. Simon nodded in understanding. He took a small bow before turning to leave. After Simon had left, Ezekiel stood up from his seat and walked towards an old-looking shelf. He opened one of the small drawers and brought out a small, ornate box from within. Years ago, on his deathbed, his father had entrusted this box to him. He instructed him to give it to Alyssa, but Ezekiel was too angry to listen, since his father had also made him vow to get married to Alyssa. He couldn't accept her as his mate then, as he resented her greatly for ruining his plans. He had always carried the box with him, but he never gave it to Alyssa. Now, he plans to fulfill his father's dying wish. The pack members feared that releasing the item to Alyssa might lead her into discovering about her true parentage, and she might leave with their heir for good, so they were not in agreement in giving it to her. Ezekiel, on the other hand, felt he had no other choice. Alyssa had grown distant from him, and he hoped that giving her this would help break part of the walls she had put up to protect her heart from him. That was how much he wanted her to love him again. Later that day, after Alyssa and Aiden left the pack's cemetery, a maid walked up to them. "I was asked to show you your room, Luna," she said as she bowed respectfully at Alyssa. Alyssa wanted to correct her about the Luna title, but she felt no need to. She had already made her point at the speech today, and if they still chose to address her as Luna, that was their business. They can't force her to act as one. Also, it would be an hassle to start correcting every one of them anyway. "Lead the way, then," she said. The maid bowed again before walking away. Alyssa held Aiden's hand and followed behind her. A few seconds later, they were standing in front of a gigantic door. The maid proceeded to push open, and an exquisite-looking room came in sight. Alyssa stared around in surprise. She never knew such a room would be given to her at the pack house of all places. She couldn't believe her eyes. She turned to face the maid. "Are you sure this room is mine?" she asked in disbelief. "Yes, Luna. We were asked to prepare this one just for you and our future alpha," she answered, her head still bowed. Servants and Omegas weren't allowed to look at the alpha and his family in the eye, as they were treated as royalty in every pack. It reminded Alyssa of when she used to be treated as the slave. She used to wish she would have this type of treatment, to be fully recognized as the Luna, and now that it was finally happening, she didn't care anymore. "All right then, you can leave." She dismissed the maid. After the maid had left, Aiden could finally act like the child that he was. "Wow," he muttered in astonishment as his eyes traveled around the room. "You like it?" Alyssa asked him. "Of course, it's so big and spacious. I can arrange everything that I brought with me anywhere I like," he answered as he ran towards his small luggage. The servants had already brought their luggage in when they left for the cemetery. "It's not like you brought many things here," Alyssa said with a soft chuckle. "At least, it's better than the room at that mansion. As big as the mansion is, the rooms there are so small and tight. I'm so glad we moved to our new home," Aiden said. Alyssa smiled wryly when she thought about what Aiden had said. That mansion was supposed to be hers and Ezekiel's matrimonial home, but it turned out to be a workplace for her. Despite being Ezekiel's wife, she was given the smallest room there, smaller than the servants' quarters, while Cindy was always given a fancy room whenever she came to visit Ezekiel. She shook her head to forget about the past. She shouldn't be thinking about things that would spoil her mood now. This was the only thing holding her back to this pack. After the pack's annual banquet, she plans to leave forever with her son. After making that resolve, she started arranging hers and Aiden's clothes in the spacious closet. All of a sudden, there was a knock at the door. Just one scent was enough for Alyssa to know who it was. She stood up and held Aiden close to her like he had come to take him away. She braced herself before uttering the words, "Come in." Just like she had told, the door was pushed open and Ezekiel entered into the room. Aiden instinctively hid behind his mom when he saw Ezekiel. Ezekiel felt his chest heavy when he saw what Aiden did. His son still hadn't forgiven him for what he had done. Well, not like he had expected to be forgiven so soon. He forced a smile on his face before turning back to face Alyssa. "What do you want?" she asked in a rather harsh tone. Ezekiel was expecting it, so it didn't faze him like before. With the wide smile still on his face, he walked closer to them. "I have something to give you," he answered as he pulled out a small box from his pocket. Alyssa stared at the box in confusion, wondering what it was and what was in it. "I'm so sorry for hiding it from you for so long," he apologized as he motioned to her to take it. Alyssa's confusion only increased. Was this the item Ezekiel's father left for me? She thought to herself. Curiosity washed over her, as she badly wanted to know how it was linked to her origin. Despite the intense desire to shut Ezekiel out, she decided not to yet and collected the box from him first. With the box in her hand, she stared back at Ezekiel, her eyes colder than it was before. "You can leave now," she said to him as she motioned towards the door. "All right?" Ezekiel muttered with a small nod and walked away. When he was close to the door, he stopped like he had forgotten something and then turned back to face her. "I just have one question, and I plead with you to give me a straight answer," he said as he tried drawing close to her, but one look from her was enough for him to halt his steps. Alyssa already knew the question he wanted to ask, but she still let him ask it. "Go on," she said. His throat felt heavy as he stared at her. The question he was about to ask, what was either going to make him or break him? "Do you really not love me anymore?" he asked, his eyes hopeful, hoping she would give him the answer he badly wanted. Without wasting a breath or mincing her words, "If it was possible, I wish to have never met you or be mated to you." Her voice was loud and cold as she uttered those words. Ezekiel's had never seen Alyssa so sure about something before. His eyes were red, like he was about to cry, but Alyssa could care less about how he felt to her harsh words. He deserved it. Ezekiel nodded his head in understanding before taking slow steps outside. The moment he left the room, Alyssa walked towards the door and shut it from the inside. Later in the night, after Aiden had fallen asleep, Alyssa finally opened the box. Inside, she saw a necklace. It had a pendant that was adorned with the same patterns she had seen earlier at Ezekiel's father's gravestone. She was puzzled, trying to find what it meant. They said it would lead her to her origins, but she had no emotional connection to it at all, and that only made her more frustrated than she already was. "Why don't you rest first? It's a big day tomorrow, and there will be a lot of people you might not want to see around," her wolf advised. Alyssa decided to heed her wolf's words. She needed enough strength to be able to deal with those lousy pack members, so she put the necklace back into the box and placed it safely in a drawer. After that, she laid next to Aiden and held him in her arms before drifting off to a deep slumber. The next morning. The celebration began very early in the morning, and the noise emanating from outside didn't let Alyssa sleep as long as she wanted, so she went out to see how it was going. As she stood in the crowd, Alyssa observed the familiar surroundings with a mix of emotions. The annual banquet used to be a blessed and also a dreaded day for her. She got to catch a glimpse of Ezekiel as he was always exempted from training, and she was also made to work her butts off like a slave. Now, she was nothing but just a watcher, a titled watcher. All of a sudden, she saw a lady, dressed to perfection. Her hair was styled like she was a model. Everything she wore on her body screamed luxury. She lady had her back against Alyssa, so she couldn't see who it was, but she still felt a sense of familiarity towards her. When the lady turned, she could finally see who it was. It was Cindy. Her face shone brightly with the wide smile and silver jewelry she was putting on. She wore a very high pair of heels as glided through the crowd, extending fake greetings to everyone she saw. Alyssa's mouth were wide agape when she saw her. She expected her to still be in the hospital by now, or show even the slightest sign of weakness since she recently had a miscarriage, but Cindy was perfectly fine. It became suspicious to Alyssa. She has lost a baby before, and she of all people knew how painful it was. It wasn't up to a week yet, and Cindy looked perfectly okay. Alyssa recalled Louis's words when he told her he saw Cindy taking a pill before fake falling. She had always wondered what the pill was, but now everything had become clear to Alyssa. Cindy never had any miscarriage. In fact, she was never pregnant in the first place. It was all an elaborate ruse. Everything that had happened since then was her plans. She had a lot of things to gain if Ezekiel hated his own son and ended up chasing both her and Aiden away. She should have known it was nothing but another plan of hers. Alyssa's gaze turned icy when she recalled the emotional abuse her son had to pass through in the hands of both Sheila and Ezekiel. His tears made her blood boil. Her son was termed a murderer, all for a child that didn't even exist. Aiden did nothing wrong to warrant what he went through. Alyssa's hands were fisted at her sides as her eyes never left Cindy. "Cindy, you must think you have won, but this is just the beginning of your suffering. Before the week ends, I'll make sure to expose you, and everything you think you have achieved would be stripped off of you, and you won't be able to do anything about it. I'll make you pay dearly for what you made my son pass through, Cindy. You should have never messed with Aiden," Alyssa vowed within her. She took one last look at Cindy before walking away. Vengeance for her son solely in her mind, When Alyssa walked back into the room she shared with her son, she found it empty. Aiden wasn't sleeping on the bed like when she had initially left. "Aiden?" She called out as she checked the bathroom and closet, but she still couldn't find him. Maybe he couldn't find us when he woke up, so he decided to go look outside, her wolf suggested. "But he was deeply asleep when I left," Alyssa answered. "Well, he isn't here now." Alyssa sighed and decided to go check outside first before raising an alarm. He had to be somewhere in the pack house. She searched around for a while but still couldn't catch any glimpse of her son, so she started to panic. She was about to go meet Ezekiel to see if he had taken Aiden when she heard the laughter of children a few meters away from where she stood. The laughter were coming from the courtyard, where most children in the pack house spend their time playing together. Aiden wasn't one to make friends that easily, so she didn't expect to find him with them. She was about to turn and go meet Ezekiel, but one part of her mind urged her to go see for herself first before jumping into conclusions. She walked into courtyard, and there she found her son laughing and playing with other pups his age. Her panicked expression instantly turned into relief upon sighting him. She wanted to call out to him, but she stopped and decided to just watch him instead. This was the first time she was seeing Aiden play with other pups. Because of his fatherless status at Grim Hunter's pack, he was a subject to bullying. Even at school here in Moonstone Keeper's pack, he didn't have any friends. He was always on his own. But after staying here at the family house for just one day, he had made some friends. The wide smile on her son's face made Alyssa smile unconsciously. She had never seen him this happy before. She had feared he would be treated the same way they treated her years ago. Like the way Emma's son inherited her arrogance and wickedness, she thought it would be the same with the kids here. She was wrong. Maybe this place isn't that bad after all, she thought to herself before walking up to Aiden. Aiden noticed her presence and looked up to face her, the wide smile still on his face. "Mom," he called out. When the other pups, Alyssa, they bowed in respect, and Alyssa smiled at their innocence. Then she turned back to face Aiden. "Let's go, baby. We have to prepare for the banquet." A sad expression immediately formed on Aiden's face. He hadn't had this much fun in a while. He wished he could continue for a long time. "Don't worry, you can play with your friends some other time," Alyssa assured, immediately replacing his sad expression with a wide smile. He stood up, dusted his clothes, and left with his mother, right after bidding his newfound friends bye. On their way to the room they shared together, they crossed paths with Ezekiel. He was heading to the conference room in preparation for the banquet. Aiden was the first to see him. The moment they made eye contact, he hid behind his mother in fear. He was scared that Ezekiel would lash out at him again, just like he did at the hospital days ago. Alyssa was stunned. Her son that was happy a few moments ago was already cowering in fear. Her surprise immediately died down when she saw Ezekiel staring at the both of them. She noticed how her son quivered, and it made her heart ache. What has Ezekiel done to the poor boy? Ezekiel, on the other hand, paused at the sight. Yesterday and today, it was the same reaction. Did he frighten the boy that much? He wanted to leave, to walk away so they wouldn't be so tensed in his presence, but another part of him wanted him to stay. They were never going to learn to forgive him if he doesn't take an initiative. So, he decided to be the first to spark a conversation. He let out a bright smile, hoping it would help ease the tension, and walked closer to them. "Are you preparing for the banquet?" he asked Alyssa. Alyssa stared at him quietly, not feeling the need to give him an answer. She wanted to leave as Aiden wasn't comfortable with his presence when all of a sudden she saw Cindy approaching them, Ezekiel rather. A small smirk formed on Alyssa's face, and she turned back to face Ezekiel. "Yes," she muttered as she moved closer to him. Ezekiel wasn't expecting her to answer his question, but he felt happy anyway. She was talking to him without having to force her to. He was about to ask another question when she did something he never expected her to. She placed her hands on his chest and slowly moved towards his necktie. Her eyes were still on his as she helped him adjust his necktie. Ezekiel was flustered by her unexpected gesture. His heart was beating fast and loud. What was going on? "The bitch looks like she's about to faint," Alyssa's wolf mocked with a small snicker. Alyssa knew her wolf was tailing about Cindy. She could already imagine the shock and angry look on her face. She must have been expecting a fight between she and Ezekiel, not a public display of affection. Alyssa acted like Cindy wasn't standing with them and watching what was going on. After she helped him with his necktie, she gently adjusted it into his suit jacket. "Are you heading to the conference?" she asked him. Yes, Ezekiel stuttered out. Alyssa's sudden act had made him lose composure. "All right then, be quick so you can leave with us for the banquet," Alyssa whispered before placing a small peck on his cheeks. Ezekiel's eyes dilated, and he looked down at Alyssa while she acted like it was a normal thing to do. He badly wanted to ask what had suddenly come over her, but he decided not to. He feared he might jinx it if he asked. He gently nodded his head and walked away like a zombie who had been commanded to, entirely ignoring Cindy, who was trying to talk to him. Alyssa noticed how Cindy tried so hard to get noticed by Ezekiel, but all of her attempts failed. She almost laughed out at how pathetic she looked. "Let's go," she said to Aiden and pulled her with him. She hadn't gotten far when Cindy stopped her. "What do you think you're doing?" Cindy asked in anger as she stood in front of Alyssa, blocking her way. "Walking to my room." Alyssa answered in a duh tone and attempted to leave again, but Cindy dragged her back harshly. Alyssa almost lost her balance, but she was quick to pull her hand away from Cindy, making her stumble forward. "Ah!" Cindy squealed out when one of her heels broke and she fell to the ground. She quickly stood up and walked shakily towards Alyssa. "You." "What?" Alyssa asked in a daring tone. Cindy's eyes quivered, not expecting Alyssa to talk in such a manner. She had always seen Alyssa as weak and fragile, always wanting Ezekiel's help whenever they had a banter. "So you are better than me, just because you are throwing yourself at Ezekiel?" She sneered as she stared at Alyssa in disgust. Alyssa chuckled instead and retorted, "You couldn't even keep your baby, so what right do you have to criticize me?" Cindy's face turned pale immediately. Alyssa was mocking her. Because she has a child for Ezekiel. She badly wanted to scratch off the smirk on her face, but there were people around. If she attacks first, she would be blamed and all her plots would go to waste. She needed to take things slow, even though Alyssa was becoming too annoying and obnoxious for her liking. "Don't think you've won just because I lost my baby." Alyssa immediately burst out into laughter when she heard that, making Cindy angrier. "Laugh all you want, because it won't last forever." Cindy whispered in a venomous tone. "What are you going to do, make Ezekiel hate me?" Alyssa asked. Cindy smirked and she drew closer to Alyssa. "That's the least of what I'm going to do. I'll make sure to force you to leave the Luna position and Ezekiel's life just like you did 5 years ago." She spat at Alyssa, eyed her before storming off. As Alyssa watched Cindy leave in anger, her smile equally vanished. After her altercation with her, she realized Cindy was easy to fool. She had a bog weakness, which was her jealousy, and Alyssa decided to use it against her. The roles had turned, and now she wanted to be tricky like Cindy, so she can reveal her true colors to everyone by herself. The only downside of her plan was that she had to be close to Ezekiel so it can work. Her wolf, on the other hand, was delighted. After days of being apart, she finally get to be close to their mate. Her wolf couldn't wait for the plan to kick-start. Alyssa walked back to her room with Aiden tagging along with her. Her mind was still on the reaction Cindy had earlier. Cindy was already falling for her trick, but she still needed to be prepared. Cindy can be unpredictable sometimes, just like the last trick she did. She was able to fool everyone, even Alyssa. Cindy could go through certain lengths just to get what she wanted. She had to be one step ahead, and to do that, she had to keep Cindy under surveillance. "Aiden, can you wait here for me? I need to take care of something urgent," Alyssa asked Aiden the moment they entered the room. "Sure, Mommy," Aiden answered with a nod. Alyssa gently patted his head and turned to leave when she suddenly recalled something. She turned back to him. "Also, don't leave the room till I get back," she told him after remembering the stress she had to pass through to find him earlier. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be here till you return." Aiden assured, then he sat on the bed. Alyssa nodded her head before she left. After walking for a while, she found who she had been searching around for. It was Amy. Cindy's Omega servant. Alyssa walked towards the working servant and stood in front of her. Amy noticed someone towering over her, and she looked up only to see Alyssa. "Can we talk?" Alyssa asked with a small smile. Amy looked back to see if Alyssa was talking to someone else behind her. When she didn't see anyone, she turned back to face Alyssa. Her eyes were red like she had just been crying. Alyssa couldn't help but notice the blood dripping from the wound on her arm. She could already tell who had done it. She felt the urge to help the poor girl, but she had to compose herself for the plan to work. "Are you talking to me?" she asked in both surprise and confusion. "Yes, I have a deal for you," Alyssa said. Amy stared at her nervously, wondering what Alyssa wanted, her eyes occasionally darting around her surroundings in fear that her mistress Cindy might catch her talking to Alyssa. She knew how much Cindy hated Alyssa, and she feared the things Cindy might do to her if she caught the both of them together. She couldn't cut her life short, all because of something like this. "I don't want to have any business with you, please excuse me," Amy muttered and was about to walk away when, "I can help you leave the pack," Alyssa uttered, making Amy stop dead on her tracks. "What?" she asked as she turned back to face her. "I know you don't enjoy being Cindy's slave. I know how much maltreatment you suffer from her every single day," Alyssa said as her eyes darted to the injury on Amy's fragile arm. That was the least of the scars on the Omega's body. Amy had been Cindy's servant since they were both little, and the maltreatment didn't start recently. Amy had a lot of scars from Cindy. Most of them were covered by her big clothes. Whether she made a mistake or not, Cindy derived great joy in doing the things she does to her. Whenever someone makes her angry, she relieves herself using Amy. Noticing Alyssa's stares, Amy immediately covered the fresh-looking wound. Cindy had just lashed out at her a few seconds ago when she didn't even make any mistake. She just walked towards her and dipped her claws deep in the Omega's flesh. All Amy could do was whimper quietly till Cindy calmed down and left her. "I know you badly want to leave, and I can help you do just that," Alyssa assured. "But it will come at a price, won't it?" The girl stuttered out. Alyssa felt guilty for having to ease Amy, but she felt she had no choice. Cindy's true nature had to be exposed one way or the other, or none of them would have peace. Alyssa swallowed a harsh breath before, "I just want you to help me keep tabs on her," she requested. "Why me?" Amy asked. "It's because you're the closest to her, and I know how badly you want to be out of her life. But what if she catches me? You don't know what she will do to me." Amy croaked out in fear. She didn't want to get on Cindy's bad side. "Do you wish to continue being her servant forever? Do you know if the next time would be worse than this?" Alyssa asked as she pointed at the girl's wounds that had thankfully stopped bleeding. "But whatever happens, I will be there to help you. I'll make sure nothing happens to you, and when our deal is done, I'll reward you handsomely so you'll be able to start a new life elsewhere," Alyssa assured. Amy stared at Alyssa silently, wondering the decision to take. Alyssa's plan had a lot of risks, but staying back as Cindy's servant was a big risk itself. Who knows what would happen the next time someone gets on Cindy's nerves? She might sever her head and no one would question her about it. At least, Alyssa was offering her freedom. After much hesitation, "All right then, I'll help you," Amy agreed, making Alyssa smile happily. "Good. Here's my number. Make sure to tell me every single detail about Cindy, no matter how small it is, and don't hesitate to call or text if something goes wrong," she said as she gave Amy a piece of paper with her phone number written in it. Amy nodded slowly as she collected the paper. "Also, go see the pack's doctor to get your wounds treated," Alyssa said to her before leaving. Now that she had secured Amy's promise, beating Cindy has been made easier for her. She walked back into her room and met Aiden sitting patiently on the bed just like she had left him. Without wasting any more time, she helped him prepare for the banquet. She dressed him up in a navy blue suit while wearing an elegant silver gray gown herself. "Come here." She gestured towards him after putting on the second pair of her earring. Aiden obediently walked towards her and stood in front of the mirror, like she had directed while she helped him put on his bow tie. At that moment, Ezekiel appeared at the doorway. He was about to enter the room when his eyes caught the warm scene in front of him. Those were his family, his life. After watching for a while, he decided to go in. "I'm done with the conference," he said as he walked into the room, thereby announcing his presence. "So?" Alyssa asked without sparing him a glance. You told me to come so we can all head to the banquet together," he said nervously, wondering why she was acting different from earlier. Alyssa's eyes widened as she was instantly reminded of her plan. She looked down to face her son. He had this pleading look in his eyes. He didn't want to go with Ezekiel. "I'm sorry," Alyssa whispered to him silently, feeling guilty for breaking her promise to him before turning to face Ezekiel with a fake smile on her face. "Let's go," she said. The smile immediately returned back to his face, and he took Alyssa's hand in his. The three of them entered the banquet hall together. At the entrance, Cindy was waiting patiently for Ezekiel so they could go together, but when she saw him with Alyssa and Aiden, her mood instantly changed. Her expression froze when her eyes landed on Ezekiel's arm, which was wrapped delicately around Alyssa's waist, and his other hand was holding Aiden's. Alyssa sent her a small grin before looking away. After the arrival of the Alpha, Luna, and their son, the banquet began immediately. The trio sat on a different table made for the Alpha's immediately family. All through the meal, Alyssa was graceful and attentive, and she occasionally conversed with Ezekiel and also helped Aiden with his food while Cindy was made to watch from across them, where the other highborns were seated. Her eyes never left them. The more they acted like a family, the more her blood boiled. Her cold gaze pierced them, Alyssa mostly, while the latter relished in it. She found joy in seeing Cindy in discomfort. She thought she's the only one that could play the game. Alyssa's wolf muttered, unable to hide how happy it was to see the look on Cindy's face. Within a few minutes, Aiden was done with his food. Since he wasn't satisfied, he requested for a dessert. Alyssa wanted to go get it, but Ezekiel volunteered instead. Alyssa didn't refute as she was tired of keeping up with the act. A little breather was what she wanted. After Ezekiel left, Lily walked towards them. She had been wanting to talk to her since they walked into the hall together, and now she has the perfect chance. "What's going on?" she asked, as she took Ezekiel's seat. Since Lily was her best friend, she decided to let her know about her plans. After listening to her explanation, a deep frown appeared on Lily's face. "I should have known that bitch had been lying from the beginning," she muttered. "That's why I'm planning to expose her. I can't let Aiden suffer for a crime he didn't commit," Alyssa answered. "You're right, but I don't support what you're doing to expose her." "Why not?" Alyssa was surprised. She thought Lily would approve of it. She was exposing Cindy and equally toying with Ezekiel's emotions like he used to do to her. What if he chooses her even after finding the truth? You know how Cindy works and how stupid Ezekiel can be in front of her. What if you get hurt again? Lily asked in concern. "I don't care if he chooses her when the time comes. All that matters to me is bringing the truth to light and protecting my son," Alyssa answered. Seeing Alyssa so resolute, Lily had no choice but to support her. They talked more before she took her leave. After Cindy left, an alpha from another pack walked towards her. "Melissa?" he called out, his eyes not leaving her. His eyes held affection and love as they laid on her. Alyssa felt puzzled as she stared at him. "You must have mistaken me for someone else. I'm not Melissa," she corrected. The man's gaze immediately switched to an embarrassed one. "I'm sorry." He apologized and left immediately. Just then, Alyssa felt someone watching her. She looked up, only to see Ezekiel's eyes on her with an unreadable expression on his face.